the people that are behind all the great services that we provide here as an organization. And you get to put a face to the name and learn a little bit about all the great things that we're doing every day for our residents. So we're going to go through, as part of this budget workshop, each budget that we're proposing as part of the operating budget, and we'll do it in the order that they appear in the budget book. So hopefully you have either downloaded or maybe you have it as a PDF and you're following along, but we encourage you to follow along tonight because the budget book will be referred back to. There won't be a PowerPoint we're using tonight. We'll just be referring to this. We put a lot of work into developing the content here, and so we want to make sure that we go through it. And we've already received a lot of really thoughtful questions from Finance Committee and Select Board members, and we've answered those questions in advance, and we published the answers in the packet for this meeting, which hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at. And if there's any follow-ups tonight, we'd be happy to talk through them. And if you need to, you can download the budget at actonma.gov/manager. So as I mentioned, each department head and division head will go through and highlight some things about their department and the service they provide, and then we'll answer any questions. Before we get started with our first speaker, I just wanted to go through the timeline a little bit of where we are in the process. So this budget, budgeting is a year-round process, and we're sort of in the middle of the formal process that we happen every year. If you recall, on November 15th, we presented the 10-year capital plan to the joint boards of the Finance Committee and the Select Board. On December 6th, we presented the Town Manager's recommended budget, which we're going through tonight. So it's great that we were able to have a joint meeting of the Finance Committee because it gave both the Select Board and the Finance Committee an opportunity to hear the presentation the same night, leading up to today, where we're going to go through each department. And then the town meeting is scheduled for May 16th. The warrant has opened and it's scheduled to close on March 23rd and to be posted on May 2nd. And so here we are. The budget that we're presenting and going through tonight was developed to be responsive to Select Board goals and community needs. And I'm going to go through and introduce each presenter as we go through, and then allow for any questions, and then move on to the next one. Our first our first presenter is Jennifer Friedman, who is the director of the Citizens Library. Jennifer, let's get started.
Okay.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hello, and good evening to everybody. My name is Jennifer Friedman. This is my 15th year as the director at the West Acton Citizens Library. I am a one-person department here, so the org chart that is in the book is pretty straightforward. And the services that we provide, we are basically a reader's library. We specialize in bestsellers and all the books that people are wanting to get their hands on quickly and easily. And we offer internet and computer access here. Our location in West Acton is really a wonderful attribute of the place, that we have a lot of people walking in, walking through, walking by, and we offer these services in a very convenient location for a lot of people in the town to reach. And this year we have expanded our services to include the Minuteman Library Network. We started that in November, and it is the first year that people can actually pick up and drop off their Minuteman material here. It has been met with a great response. People are thrilled that they're able to come in here and grab those books rather than running to the center of town to do so. So we've seen a tremendous uptick in traffic and in just people walking in the building and saying, wow, I haven't been here, and this is great that it's here, and it's great that you're in Minuteman now. So we're really thrilled with the way things are moving along. We have also expanded our services to include permanent curbside pickup. That is a service that will remain at the West Acton Library indefinitely. So we're planning on keeping that up to better serve our customers. As far as the budget goes, there are a few differences this year than last year. Last year, we joined Minuteman, and due to COVID, we were able to take money from our book budget and put that toward joining Minuteman, which was an initial outlay of an amount of money that we couldn't have come up with otherwise, really. So we were able to do that last year, and in the next budget, we have incorporated some of the Minuteman expenses because they are going to continue. Those services fall under contractual services on the budget line items. And you'll see that gone up 115%. That's because they were almost nothing, and now we are paying for the cost of our Minuteman membership, as well as the cost of transporting the books from the Minuteman system here to West Acton. So that number is now $5,000, where it used to be more along the lines of $500. But the services that we are getting for that are really tremendous. The other line item that has gone up is our book budget, and that is mandated as 15% of the total library budget by the Mass Board of Library Commissioners. So when our budget went up, that number also had to go up to reflect a 15%, so that we're in line with what the state requires and eligible for state aid as a town. Other than that, the budget is pretty much as it was, and I'm happy to take any of your questions.
Okay, Christine, if it's okay with you, I'm just going to call on people as they raise their hands, and I'm not going to go down the line because we have a lot of presenters tonight. So for each presenter, if you have a question, either wave at me or raise your electronic hand and I'll call on you. And if you don't have questions, we'll move on. Any questions for Jennifer about the West Acton Library?
Okay.
Seems like you were very thorough, Jennifer. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Nice job, Jennifer. Our next presenter will be Cheryl Mercurio, the Director of the Council on Aging, and that budget starts on page 35 of the budget book. Sharon?
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm the Council on Aging Director for the Town of Acton, and I've been here for over 11 years. I'm actually the only 40-hour per week position for the COA. Our program manager is 35 hours a week. She's in charge of scheduling all the classes, programs, lectures, finding what's of interest for the seniors and scheduling those. She also manages the volunteer instructors and group leaders. Our office manager is a 30-hour position, and she oversees the front desk personnel, including the senior workers and volunteers. She publishes the monthly newsletter, collects data for the state annual report, and is the administrator for the COA website. She coordinates the AARP tax volunteers. We have a 19-hour-a-week staff assistant position. So she works basically at the front desk as reception, answering questions, directing folks, but also helps with some of the volunteers we have. She schedules the art exhibits, oversees our frozen meal distribution program, runs the Handy Helpers program, Ask the Lawyer program, and assists with scheduling the Shine appointments. We have a fitness instructor that's been with the town for over 20 years. She's 8.3 hours a week. An activity assistant that's paid for entirely from the state formula grant. She works 19 hours a week and assists the program manager with the different lectures, classes, programs that are going on with setup and that sort of thing. She also assists with the special meals. And since we've been back, we're doing both. We're just like Jennifer, learned some things from the pandemic. So we're going to be continuing some of the virtual programming we're doing and then also conducting some in person, but kind of doubles the workload in some ways. This position also has taken on training the gym volunteers and scheduling the gym volunteers. We have a senior services coordinator. She currently works 34 hours for the COA, providing social services for residents that are 60 and older. And then she also works 6 hours for the VSO. Due to the increase in the senior population and really the social service needs that the town is seeing right now, we're proposing to have that 40 hours solely for the COA. She also, at this point, is trying to oversee the volunteers as well. The COA is proposing a new position. This actually is the first position we've proposed since my time here over 11 years ago. We're proposing a 15-hour a week position partially funded through the formula grant, and really looking to coordinate all the volunteers. Right now, as you can see, lots of different pieces have gone to different staff members. And what I'm really looking is to try to centralize that and have one person that's kind of the point for all of the volunteers, and also assist with the front desk. So this person would be working opposite the other part-time position at the front desk, kind of dual purpose. Acton's senior population consists of over 5,300 seniors right now. And last fiscal year, we provided services to over 31% of our senior population. And the COA, Council on Aging, is the name for our department. The Senior Center is the name of our building, but it's much more than the classes and programs and meals that we offer. It really is a home away from home for so many seniors. And when we were able to open our doors again, we just saw how important we were for folks, the need to socialize and come together. It's really a place for people to connect with other people their own age that know what they're going through in this phase of life. We also provide a lot of social services to Acton seniors. So information referral, dementia care, housing. We help with fuel and food assistance, aid with different housing applications, and make referrals to other agencies. The COA offers free legal advice with local elder law attorneys. We also provide insurance counseling for Medicare, and AARP has been fabulous doing tax preparation for the lower income seniors. The Council on Aging has found innovative ways to provide services and programming to the seniors in the community. I apologize, sorry. At the Senior Center, the Senior Center was closed to the public, and the uncertainty of COVID-19 was continuing. The COA offered many programs via Zoom. ActonTV was a vital component. Most of you have probably seen Java with John. We did a lot of drive-through activities, again, just trying to get seniors out of their house and making some kind of connection, giving them a purpose to get up and get out. We held several different drive-through events, including special lunches, 90s birthday celebrations, shredding days. We had lots of folks from the community step forward to help reach out to the seniors. We took a very active role in assisting our residents get vaccinated, finding up-to-date information for them, putting their information into the town's vaccine interest form, making phone calls, helping them register, because as you all remember, we were doing our oldest residents first who really were not too technology savvy. So that really was fast and furious for us, but it was a very exciting time because people were really anxious to get vaccinated, but it was really stressful because there was so much uncertainty and such demand. So, that was something that I felt we contributed to hugely, along with Board of Health, nursing. They were fabulous. The fire department. On July 6th, our building opened, kind of back to normal. So we were doing in-person programs, activities, and meals, but we continue to offer virtual programming, as I stated before, grab-and-go meals, just because we're finding that some of our seniors still aren't comfortable coming back into a situation. And now that we've kind of needed to reel back again, it was a real easy transition for us. So on page 36, you'll see a slight decrease in the number of seniors that we served last year. And a lot of that is due to the inability to try to capture our virtual users. So ActonTV, as I said, was a wonderful outlet for folks that weren't comfortable using Zoom. So we had different classes, lectures, that sort of thing on ActonTV, and no way to document who we were reaching out to. And again, when the vaccine, the governor kind of announced before he told us that COAs would be their lifeline in that. So we really kind of hit the ground running for that, and we're not able to document a lot of those calls and outreach things that we did. So on page 37, there's some changes to the COA budget. Again, salaries under permanent and regular. That shows the moving of hours from the VSO's budget to COA. And then also the 15-hour-a-week volunteer coordinator that we're proposing. We foresee an increase in dues, so that line item has gone up a little bit. MCOA is still using the census numbers from the 2010 census, and as we know, our population has increased, so we're just waiting for the 2020 numbers to come through. We also would like to reinstate the Minuteman Senior Service annual assessment. They provide really incredible services to the seniors in town. It's a state agency. They run the Meals on Wheels program. They have a dining room coordinator that works in the kitchen part-time. So that was a position that the town doesn't have to fund. That's been really valuable. And then some reductions in the budget. I'd like to reduce the travel reimbursement. Again, one of those things from the pandemic, a lot of virtual meetings, so that decreases the need for mileage reimbursement. And then also we're removing the line item for contractual services. I think that's it for me. Do you have any questions?
Members of either board, just wave or raise your electronic hand. I don't see anyone. Thank you so much, Sharon.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Bye.
Thank you, Sharon. So our next presenter will be Finance Director Steve Barrett, who's going to introduce all of the divisions that are part of the finance team, as well as give an update on his finance budget. Steve.
Thank you, boss. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, select board members, and finance committee members. I'm Steve Barrett. I've been finance director for the town for the last 22 years. There are three distinct divisions housed in town finance. The assessor division, which is overseen by Assistant Finance Director, Principal Assessor Brian McMullen. You'll hear from Brian in a minute. The accounting division, which is overseen by Town Accountant Lisa Wojcik, and you'll hear from Lisa in a minute. Finally, the tax collector Treasury division is overseen by Tax Collector Deputy Treasurer Teresa O'Leary. Teresa's on vacation, so I'll push through that budget. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Brian and Lisa and Teresa and all finance staff for their hard work. The last 2 years have been very, very difficult, but they've met every challenge. They answered my calls, texts, emails on nights and weekends. Whatever I can do to help the town is how I was always answered. Thank you for your loyalty and dedication to the town. The budget book, starting on page 40, lays out the finance department mission statement, as well as a list of some major services that are provided. Page 41 documents organizational structure of the department through an FTE chart. The division heads will provide greater detail on their respective divisions when they speak. One important change to note is that the oversight of the town clerk division has been transferred to the town manager office. The change was done to allow for greater alignment of resources to support the town clerk department in all the important work that they do. The FY23 Finance Director's budget can be found on pages 42 through 44. This budget includes entity-wide allocations for benefits, payroll taxes, debt, pension, OPEB, and property and liability insurance. This budget also covers postal needs for the town. In FY23, the Finance Director's budget request is up $430,000 or 3.31%. And that increase is comprised in a large part by the $325,000 increase in the town's pension assessment for FY23. Other notable changes would be that health insurance budgets increased 10% based upon guidance from the Health Insurance Trust. These are the big changes in the Finance Director's budget. Really quick, I'd like to review the tax collector budget as Teresa O'Leary is on vacation. The first thing to say about this division is that Teresa was recently named Tax Collector Deputy Treasurer. This is part of our succession plan and right in line with where we'd like to see her. You'll see her name, in fact, on the recent tax bill that showed up, and this would reflect that change. Teresa's been with the town for 5 years and has excelled. The tax collector budget increased about $6,000 or 3.66%. That increase can be attributed to the salary line items and as a result of promotional and merit changes within the department. At that point, I'd be ready for some questions before we hear Brian and Lisa.
Any
We could
overall-
all do the whole
any
finance
overall-
department. Sorry.
Overall finance questions from either board? I don't see anyone, so please, Steve, let's move on.
Yeah, Brian, you're up.
Thanks, Steve, Mr. Barrett. Thank you, members of the Select Board and the Finance Committee. Appreciate you having me here tonight to be able to present the assessor's budget. As Steve had mentioned, I am Brian McMullen, Principal Assessor, Assistant Finance Director, and I have been with the town for 30 years. Happy to report that. And tonight, we'll be talking about the assessor budget, which I refer to as a level service budget. 94% of my budget is comprised of salaries. And those salaries are for 3 specific positions in my budget. The first one being myself, the principal assessor. The second being the administrative assistant, who's kind of the day-to-day activities, a lot of paperwork. She's been with the town for quite a number of years now herself. And then my property lister. And you're saying, well, what's a property lister? Well, a property lister is responsible for collecting data, making sure that the assessment records that we have on file are accurate and correct, looking at MLS listings, going out and doing field inspections, going out and doing permit review, and so on and so forth. So that's my property lister. The budget is flat for the most part, except for the salaries, which was really position control and merit raises and increases. The other highlight I want to bring out is the professional services line. That professional services line is up about $5,000, and that's really attributed to a change in rules from State Department of Revenue, where we have public utilities in town. At one time, the state used to value those public utilities for all the communities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. That's changed now, and they require an independent fee appraiser to appraise those. And of course, that expense falls upon the town, so that's the reason why that increase is in there. So what do the assessors do? What are we responsible for? Well, we have about $5 billion in valuation of about 9,000 plus taxable parcels. We also have to defend those values. If somebody is unhappy with the decision of the Board of Assessors, if they think their valuation is improper and they don't get the outcome that they wish, they may appeal that to the Appellate Board. We have to defend those values at the Appellate Board. We also have about 23,000 motor vehicle excise tax bills that we oversee. So that incorporates includes any abatements and exemptions that may be necessary. Also, we administer real estate and tax abatements and exemptions, including the CPA. And I'm really happy to report that last year and the year prior, we had over $600,000 of personal property tax exemptions that were granted, which is really a tremendous, effort on behalf of the Board of Assessors, and they do a wonderful job in taking care of us citizens. So I think it's important to note. We also do annual interim adjustments of property values. So even though the rules have changed as far as revaluations in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, so certification years, every year we do interim adjustments. So we make minor market changes. We kind of iron out the wrinkles in certain trends. And that's kind of a requirement as well from DOR. We also hold the annual tax classification hearing. You're saying, well, what's that? Well, it's a hearing that is held with the Board of Selectmen, and the assessors present ways that they can actually mitigate or shift the tax burden from different classes of property, primarily being the residential, the commercial, the industrial, and personal property. So there are various decisions that need to be made, and there's ways that you can change that tax burden or that allocation. I'm happy to report this year that we had a uniform tax rate of $19.45. That hearing was held back in December. We also calculate the annual allowable tax levy growth attributed to new growth. So when folks pull out permits and they make significant changes to their property, we're responsible for going out, noting that change, and it's effect on the valuation, and then we have to document that and submit that as well to State Department of Revenue. And then we also annually prepare and submit the tax recap. Well, the tax recap really is a document that pulls together all of town meeting spending, all sources of revenue and expenses. That includes not just the general fund, but any kind of enterprise funds and also the Community Preservation Act and the sources of revenue for those expenses. And it all has to reconcile. That results in that uniform tax rate of $19.45. So some of the initiatives that we are happy to report that we're going to be continuing to do, and we take pleasure in doing it, is making sure that we provide fair and equitable assessments. That's number one. We want to make sure that we equally treat everybody the same and there's no bias. So we want to make sure that that's, number one. That's very important. Second to that, which to me is just as important, is to making sure that we continue to provide and promote senior tax relief for those that are worthy and need. We want to make sure we take care of those that may be having some difficulties, and that's important to us. And I had mentioned that in the past we've had about $600,000 of personal property tax exemptions that we had granted. So thank you very much, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Steve, please. Steve Newman.
Yeah, Brian, thank you. The last full reassessment looks like it was in 2021, because that's where your $83,000 worth of professional services occurred. During 2021, property values in this town increased rapidly. Do you feel you captured that increase in that assessment, or was the reassessment done basically on prior year data, say 2020?
Yeah, it's a great question, Steve. So for fiscal 21, that was actually fiscal 21. Let me get this straight. So fiscal 21 was 1/1/20, and that would have been using calendar 2019 sales. This year we used 2020 sales to determine the current values for FY22. So the latest change that you saw on your tax bill is sales that have occurred in 2020. Next year for 2023, we'll be using this past year calendar 21 sales to determine those new values. So I anticipate that those will be going up as well as the market has continued to increase.
Something to look forward to. So we have some upside here as a town in terms of revenue.
Well, it's kind of funny, as you know, as property values go up, and if the budget's the same, the tax rate comes down. So, at first there was some concern about the increase, but if the increase in your value outpaces the increase in the tax rate, then the tax rate's coming down. So it's just an algebraic equation. As you know, we can't raise any more in taxes than what we're allowed by state law.
I realize that, and I realize the budget really sets taxes, but and again, whenever I look at my tax bill, it went up. So I just want some idea of what it's going to look like next year.
Thank you. Anyone else, either board, have a question? Jim.
I was wondering about the appellate board hearings in terms of how many you typically have, you have to participate in each year, and how expensive they are.
Well, I missed the beginning of that, Jim.
All right. The appellate board hearings.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, so the appellate board hearing, actually, I have to say in the last several years, we've actually had very few appeals to the appellate board. Most of those happen to be commercial properties, and a lot of times we settle those locally. So the assessors, again, do a good job, and they're very fair, very reasonable, and they try to work with most citizenry here in town, whether it's the business community or the individuals. So I have to say that it's been relatively light the last few years, and I think a lot of that is because we see the current trend where property values are going up. You have a tendency to see more appeals when the values are coming down, because there is some lag time, and that generally will kind of throw up a flag for most folks, because they're looking at present day data versus historical data, which the assessments are based on.
Great, thanks. Jason.
Thank you. Just with regard to the the $5,000 for the professional services, the outside contractors, I take it that's going to be something that we have to account for year after year moving forward. That's not a one and done, right? That's a permanent increase on that line item.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Other questions for Brian? I don't see any more. So is Lisa next?
Hi, everyone. My name's Lisa Wojcik, and I'm the town
Thank you, Brian.
accountant. I have worked here for 28 years. I have 4 positions in the accounting department, including myself. I have an assistant town accountant. She's been here almost 9 years. I have an accounts payable coordinator who's been here 15 years, and a payroll assistant who's been here 3 years. The main duties of the accounting department are payroll, accounts payable, financial reporting to departments and to DOR, and any departmental support. My budget's on page 53. The increase in salaries is due to merit increases, and the increase in public services are the professional service line, is a professional service line for report writing consultant and year-end close services if needed. Supplies have increased due to technology of scanners. We scan invoices directly into our general ledger, so we can just click on the account and see what the backup is instead of going to a file. And there's printer, labels, ink, and special ink for printing checks and any other supplies that we might need. That's it.
Thank you. Questions for Lisa? I don't see any. Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank you.
And now, Steve, back to you for the treasurer collector. Is that right?
Mr. Chairman, I did the collector budget already. I can tell you again that it was the collector budget was up 3.66% or $6,000. It's primarily salary, and that increase can be attributed as a result of promotional and merit changes within the collector department.
Okay. Any final questions for finance? Okay, thank you all.
Great job. So finance, I just want to mention the 7th year running for being recognized for excellence in financial reporting, which is not an easy thing to do. So it takes a lot of work throughout the year, and then especially at the end of the year to make that happen. So great job, finance team. Also, it's worth mentioning that, and Steve mentioned this a little bit, but they've been working extra on all this federal money that we've received, which is great to have, but it creates a lot of work and responsibilities and new challenges for the finance team, and they've done an excellent job. So great work, everyone down in finance. And our next presenter is our fire chief, Robert Hart, who's going to talk about the fire department budget.
Hey, hello everyone, and thank you for having me. I'm Robert Hart, your fire chief, and I've been with the town for about 34 years now. I'm working on 6 years as your chief. I'd like to take a moment to thank all the men and women of the Acton Fire Department who exemplify what a fire department should be. Operating in a COVID-19 pandemic is exhausting and extremely stressful, and I'm proud of how you all continue to serve the citizens of Acton with compassion and grace. Thank you to the Select Board, Finance Committee, Town Manager, all Town Hall staff, citizens for their continued support of the fire department. So the fire department oversees 4 different and distinct annual operating budgets, which will require funding in FY23. One of those budgets is the emergency management budget, and we'll have Deputy Arnhem review that after I get done yapping at you guys. The largest budget is the general fund. The Acton Fire Department is responsible for fire prevention and education, fire suppression, rescue, hazardous material emergency response, ambulance and emergency medical services. In addition, working with other town departments, the Acton Fire Department is responsible for emergency preparedness and disaster mitigation. And together with the Acton Police Department, we jointly are responsible for the E911 Emergency Communications Dispatch Center. We bring you this service operating out of 3 fire stations, and I'm proud to say soon to be a 4th at 68 Harris Street. And we anticipate this station, which is a state-of-the-art station, to be online near the end of January, the beginning of February. Located in the public safety facility at 371 Main Street is the fire chief, the deputy chief, and administrative assistant. This is the place to pull fire department permits and schedule inspections. And there are many inspections that we perform, such as final building inspections, alarm, sprinkler, solar battery arrays, commercial cooking hoods, gas stations, propane storage, along with oil tank and oil burner inspections, to name a few. We also conduct site plan reviews for new developments, helping to ensure the fire department has proper access and proper water supply. There are 44 members in the department deployed over 4 groups, providing year-round, 24-hour-day fire and EMS coverage to the town. All of our members are trained to the level of EMT, which is Emergency Medical Technician, and out of those, we have 17 paramedics. All are required to graduate from the Mass Fire Academy 10-week firefighter training program, and we do not maintain an on-call firefighter force, so all of our members are full-time with us. The Acton Fire Department relies on the membership to assist in the many aspects of keeping this department operating. It is through their hard work in these various areas that keep us operating to the best of our ability, providing outstanding service to the citizens of Acton. So along with performing their shift work, crews aid in the following divisions: Fire Prevention, Training Division, Public Information Group, Radio and Communications, Paramedic Oversight Committee, Protective Gear, Apparatus Purchasing Committee, Fleet Maintenance Division, Fire Investigation Unit, and the Public Education Division. The department responded to roughly 4,745 calls for service in 2021, of which 1,557 were medical type incidents. We responded to 260 fire type incidents in town, which include brush fires, electrical fires, car fires, chimney fires, dumpster fires, and the sort. Also, we gladly help out our neighbors in times of need. In Boxborough last winter, there was a large apartment loss. We assisted in that. There was a fatal fire in Maynard, which we assisted in. Concord had one of their schools have some fire damage, which resulted in roughly $3 million in damage. So we go help out our neighbors as necessary, as they help us in return. The next budget is our Firearm Network Revolving Fund. This fund houses all financial activity pursuant to our Firearm Callbox program. The Municipal Firearm Network has 470 firearm boxes on it. The Firearm Division maintains the wiring that runs on utility poles and the decoding equipment in the 4 stations in the dispatch center. The Firearm Division does utility pole transfers, which is moving wires from old damaged poles into the new poles that are set. And we refurbish the boxes on the system, replace wiring both overhead and underground. We paint the boxes and the supports. We take care of the internal maintenance of the boxes. And this division also works with developers and contractors to ensure that proper number and location of any new firearm box is installed. From time to time, we assist the information technology department with utility pole transfers of the fiber optic cable that the town operates. There's 2 personnel assigned to this division, and they attend continuing education classes for municipal firearm systems provided by WL Bills and the International Municipal Signal Association. The division also installs and removes the overhead banners on Main Street that announces various community and civic activities. We also work on projects throughout the town, including hanging of the chain falls at Narrow Park, working on traffic lights, holiday lights, American flags, project graduation, and changing the light bulbs and the pole lights in the town locks. We continue to work with the Massachusetts Department of Transportation on proposed intersection improvements with planning the relocation of our system utilities. As an example, the Kelly's Corner project, our team's involved with that. The Ambulance Enterprise Fund. We celebrated our 4th year anniversary of providing advanced life support, or ALS, service on September 5th of 2021. This fund handles all the town's emergency medical system operations, both basic and advanced life support. 10 firefighter paramedics and the ALS medical coordinator, along with their benefits, are budgeted and paid for out of this fund. This also includes an OPEB contribution. All expenses necessary to operate the enterprise fund are carried in this budget. This includes a considerable amount of training from outside vendors, procurement of necessary medications and medical equipment. The state requires a doctor to oversee our advanced life support operation, and Dr. Gert Walter of Emerson Hospital is our medical control doctor. We work closely with Emerson Hospital staff to ensure we are properly trained and in conformance with the statewide treatment protocols. The state requires that we are licensed to operate as an ALS ambulance service and has extensive oversight on the medications we carry. This includes a rigorous annual state inspection of our service. So soon we'll be operating out of 4 stations as our new station comes online. And we'll be responding to a wide variety of incidents along with many calls happening at the same time. This causes us to look at our staffing levels. This year we are advocating for additional staff in the form of an ambulance impact shift. Hiring of 2 personnel assigned to an ambulance, working a Monday through Friday day shift to help us capture the high volume of daylight incidents during this time frame. This will further assist in reducing the need for utilizing incoming mutual aid and helping to take care of Acton citizens with our staff in a timely fashion. So capital last year, we did procure a new ambulance, which we've just placed in service. And we also procured a new hybrid command vehicle for our shift commanders. So those are on the street. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Deputy Chief Anita Arnhem. She's going to talk about the FY23 emergency management budget. She is our emergency management director. But a special and tremendous thanks to Anita for all of her time and energy that she's devoted to fighting this COVID-19 pandemic between vaccination clinics, servicing the homebound population of Acton, children's clinics with the school, working with Acton Pharmacy, Board of Health, and our nursing services. She's just been a tremendous asset during this difficult time for everybody. So big thank you to Anita. And I'm going to turn the meeting over to Anita.
Good evening, all. Thank you. I have no idea why I'm upside down, so I apologize for that. I'll have to talk to IT about that at some point. Anyway, my name is Anita Arnhem. I've been with the fire department for 32 plus years and 1 year serving as your emergency management director. As I came in, jumped right in as far as dealing with the emergency at hand, which is the COVID emergency. As the chief said, there's been a lot of different activities with that as far as providing vaccinations, testing, all kinds of things. I'd like to thank my firefighters, as well as the police department, Council on Aging, the schools, school nurses, municipal properties, highway, Board of Health. Everyone's been really working well together to combat this emergency. In a nutshell, emergency management is preparedness. Basically, in an emergency, if you need something, everyone else does too. So if you don't have it or have access or a way to get it, you're going to have a hard time doing that. So we need to be prepared. So working on making sure what we have for equipment is in working order and prepared, and make sure that we can obtain various items. We've recently received some small grants, and we also work with NERAC, which is the Northeast Council. Forgive me for the rest of the items, but there's a couple of different councils where you can procure some various things. And just as an example, we were able to obtain over 9,000 masks today. We got Lysol wipes, and we get all kinds of things that we can share with the various departments to help combat our current emergency. The budget is pretty straightforward. Basically, it's to help with materials that we might need. There's a communications or telephone budget, which is primarily going to be used for satellite communications, because again, if communications go down, you need a sat phone. If you don't have it, it's too late to get it when you need it. So I also have a grant out for that too that we're hoping to procure. That's it in a nutshell. Very very small page, one page on emergency management, but happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from either board for the chief or deputy chief? Christine.
Hi, I have a question for the chief, I guess. So if I have a medical emergency in the middle of the day and am serviced by, maybe we don't have an ambulance available and I'm serviced by one of our member communities, is there a price difference to me or do we have some sort of agreement with Concord or the surrounding community as far as how they get paid for that aid?
So that's kind of a trick question, but simply Samara towns, which we used to be a part of Samara, when we went ALS, we withdrew from Samara. So Samara is most of the towns around us. So we keep pace with Samara's rates. So if they increase their rates, we increase our rates. So it should be the same billing.
Okay.
There are a few towns like Westford and Littleton that are a little bit different. They may or may not keep pace with Samara, but generally speaking, the towns around here try to have a similar fee structure.
Okay, so as far as availability of coverage for peak times, I assume it's a matter of getting to our people faster to have staff in Acton as opposed to, counting on a network to cover those peak times. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Noon, then Jason.
Yeah, but Chief, so when is soon in terms of the North Acton station opening up? It looks about done.
That's a great question, Steve. It is substantially complete. We're working on kind of internal stuff like networking, internet access, which IT has been working on this week, and I think they've completed it. If not, they'll be done tomorrow. And with that comes some of our HVAC technicians need the internet to finish their final balancing and reporting out of efficiencies within the systems. So I can't give you an exact date, but we're holding our breath, and it should be soon.
Okay. And off the top of your head, do you know what percentage of the responses go to North Acton?
It's a good question. I haven't figured that one out yet.
My casual observation is you come every day. I don't know whether that's more than once a day.
We're all over the town frequently, but North Acton is our largest district, which encompasses the center district as well. So a bulk of our runs are to the center and north of that.
Thank you.
We in the south of Acton are more careful. Jason, please.
Well, David, you're going to get yourself in trouble on that one. To follow up with what Chairman Russell was talking about with the mutual aid, do we have a idea of how many calls last year would have been able to have been handled, or is it strictly just with the increase of this swing shift? Is it strictly just a lessening of response time? Do we have any metrics on exactly what we're going to be able to consider a win for having this swing shift?
So that's a good point, Jason. A win for me is taking the best care of our citizens. So us having that in-house resource is a win. But to your point, roughly 90 times last year we brought mutual aid ambulances in. We're not going to be able to capture the 90 incidences, but if we can capture the 50 or 60, I believe that's a solid win for our citizens and the care that we can give them.
Okay, so that's what you're targeting for this coming year, 50 to 60 extra, the 50 or the 60 less mutual aid calls during daylight hours, approximately half of the mutual aid calls during daylight hours.
That's a good take, yes.
Okay, it's a good metric for us to be able to keep in mind. And then my follow-up on the emergency management side, I'm just taking a look at this one pager. I'm assuming that there was something happened this year or in 2021 that was a surprise because there was a large contractual service charge that seems to be askew of what was expected.
So the contractual service, 25,000. Actually, I think I'll need to refer to John on that.
Yeah, so that's related to our emergency response actions related to the River Street Dam.
Related to the River Street Dam. Can you say a little more about that? I'm sorry, I don't follow what you mean by that.
So we use funding in the emergency management budget to serve as a grant match for I think it was $86,000 or $76,000 grant that we received from the state. We needed matching funds, and we used this budget for that.
Okay, so this is just a placeholder. It's not a harbinger of potential future recurring expenses.
No, it would just be for this grant, and then going forward, we have a financing strategy to take care of the big project of the dam, which wouldn't include the emergency management, which would not include the emergency management budget.
Understood. Thank you.
Any other questions? Hemija.
Thank you. So this is more of a curiosity-based question, but I know that there's a lot of efforts going on at the state level to try to put more restrictions on firefighter gear, especially those that are more safe and contain less harmful chemicals like PFAS. So I'm wondering, is that something that the fire department is currently thinking about, potentially more safe fire gear alternatives, or is that something that will likely have to be addressed in the future?
That's a great question. We work diligently on our protective gear. We call it PPE, our structural firefighting gear. And we work hard to provide the resources for both what we call a washer extractor, which is a big heavy duty wash machine to help keep the gear clean, and drying cabinets to keep them dry. We work on obtaining 2 sets of gear for each member. And as we purchase new gear, because it only has a lifespan of 10 years, as we purchase new gear, we make sure we're in compliance with the latest and greatest safety protocols. So yes, we're aware, and we're working hard to make sure our firefighters are safe.
Great, thank you.
Anything else from anybody? I just have one quick question. Chief, do you know what the hours will be for the impact shift? Have you decided that yet?
So we're working on like a 40 to 42 hour work week, Monday through Friday, mainly during the day to coincide with our existing shift schedule, which our existing shift is a 10-hour day shift. So 7 to 5 is that. So somewhere in there, David, we will be working on squeezing out a 40 to 42 hour work week.
Thank you. Last call for the fire department.
That was way too many questions.
Thank you, Chief and Deputy Chief.
Thank you.
Great job, Fire Department. Our next presenter is our Human Resources Director, Mary Ann Fleckner, to talk about the Human Resources budget.
Okay. So good evening, Select Board and Finance Committee. So the HR budget begins on page 65. Overall, the HR budget has decreased by 1%. So the first page, the first part of fiscal year 22 has been a productive period for the Human Resources Office. We brought on a new employee, Kathleen Cat Stryker, in late August as the town's talent acquisition HR generalist. Kat moved from Florida, where she worked in human resources for county government. We truly hit the jackpot with Kat, as not only did she have HR and municipal experience, but she also came to us with knowledge of the HR module of Munis, the software that the town currently uses for payroll and other functions, and will soon be using for HR functions. Before being a municipal employee, county employee, Kat worked for Walt Disney World Resort for 8 years, mostly creating and implementing training programs. And Kat was hired for the backfill of Mary Beth Zabak, who was promoted to the HR officer position that was vacated in 2000 by the retirement of Mary Jane Kenney. And Mary Beth performs both HR and payroll functions and has been with us for 2.5 years. To round us off, I'm the HR director, and I've been with the town for 14 years. And before that, I was with the Commonwealth for 21 years, so a total of 35 years. On page 66, you will see our organization chart showing 2 FTEs, as one FTE is funded by the accounting division because, as mentioned earlier, the HR staff also works in payroll to help process the town's biweekly payroll cycle. So we continued with the successful recruitment and onboarding of new personnel in these unprecedented times, now dubbed the Great Resignation. Every employer has been challenged with the difficulties of recruiting candidates, sprinting across the finish line before a candidate is scooped up by the competition. While competition instills new energy, it also becomes frustrating at times when a position might remain vacant a bit longer than we expect. But we've taken many creative approaches, advertising, new ways, partnering with local community organizations, statewide organizations, advertising in different languages, offering monetary incentives, and highlighting some of the great benefits we currently offer, like public pension. This overall result has been the hiring of talented and vibrant individuals committed to public service. As of today, we received and reviewed over 700 resumes for vacancies. And overall, we manage approximately 500 retirees benefits, 200 active employees, about 60 seasonal, so a total of almost 800 people. Under John's direction, we negotiate with 5 unions: police patrol, police superior, fire, highway, facility, cemetery, and dispatch. We are currently at the table with patrol, superiors, fire, and dispatch, and are hopeful to reach tentative agreements to meet the annual town meeting deadline. We continue to have a robust wellness and ERC, Employee Recognition Committee. The WIN committee specifically, talk about that, is made up of 9 employees who bring wellness programs to our employees, whether these be for physical fitness or mental fitness. We have 2 sponsored events coming up in February, one of them being a workshop on learning about Jewish culture, customs, and how we can identify anti-Semitism. At this time, I will highlight some of our major changes in the fiscal year 23 budget, which are located on pages 67 and 68. The first I will be speaking about is the senior worker program. The request is to go from $56,925 to $45,000. We are still experiencing some hesitancy from some of our senior workers to return to work and the ability to recruit new senior workers. We've gotten creative with the physical work environments, putting ourselves in our seniors' minds at ease regarding social distancing and remote work when possible. But it's still been one of those programs that have had a slower recovery than other programs. We felt it would be prudent of us to request a decrease in fiscal year 23 on our spending, because in fiscal year 21, it wasn't completely spent, and in fiscal year 22, we're projecting the same. As of December, we were at $7,511. And so that represents a 20% decrease. Advertising, we're requesting to go from $10,500 to $10,815, a 3% increase. Estimating that the town will need to conduct recruitment efforts for approximately 10 to 15 positions, and the slight increase reflects a small increase from advertising groups like the MMA. The next group is dues and membership, a request to go from $1,700 to $1,900, an 11.76% increase. This increase allows for the talent acquisition and HR generalist, Kat, who I was just speaking about, to become a member of HR organizations such as SHRM, the Society of Human Resources Managers, and the Mass Municipal Human Resources Association. Last, certainly not least, is the police and fire injury insurance, otherwise known as 111F. This request is to go from $94,000 to $103,000. This is a 9.57% increase. This budget has not changed over 7 fiscal years. We continue to work closely with our vendor, the Gowrie Group, to keep injury costs as low as possible by staying abreast of every injury, working closely with doctors and physical therapists, and working towards helping the employee return to full duty as soon as they're able. We take a very conservative approach on this. In fiscal year 21, we spent $112,000. And looking at the current injuries and what we're projecting, we're confident the $103,000 request will meet our needs. In closing, these changes, along with the constants, represent the 1% decrease in the human resources budget. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
Steve Moon, please.
Yeah, thanks, Marianne. Of the contracts that you're currently negotiating, are they all effective with the coming fiscal year, or are there any that are retroactive into this year?
The dispatch is retroactive, and the rest are current.
Okay.
And the good news is the dispatch is a very small group, approximately 9 to 11 employees.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Other questions for Marianne? Mike?
Yeah, here's an HR question. How many retirees is the town currently supporting?
Approximately 500.
500. Is that mainly from the Acton public schools versus the district?
Yes.
So
Both. Well,
very much.
Right, since the change, I think it was June 30th, 2014. We have both the AB and the APS. Anyone who retired previous to that date.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions, anyone? Oh, I don't see any. Thank you very much, Marianne.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. Our next presenter is for the IT group, and Mark Cald is our Assistant Town Manager, CIO. Mark, take it away.
Good evening. Audio's good?
Yes.
All right. Good evening. My name is Mark Cald. I'm the Assistant Town Manager. I've been with the town for over 21 years. The department is shown in the budget book on page 73 and consists of 2 divisions. With us tonight representing the technology division, we have Matt Frost, our Chief Technology Officer, and representing the GIS division is our Geographic Information Officer, Kristen Alexander, who also manages the town services hotline. This budget is solely level service, showing an increase where we begin to budget for hardware and software license costs previously covered by CARES funding. And with that, I will ask Matt and Kristen to introduce themselves and say a few words. But first, I'd just like to say that the success of most projects that I'm involved with for the town relies heavily upon these 2, whether on the public front or behind the scenes, and I'd like to thank them both here. They'll mention what we've been working on, and then we'd be happy to take your questions. Matt?
Matt, you're muted.
I apologize for that. My name is Matt Frost. I've worked for Acton's Information Technology Department since 2013. I currently hold the role of Chief Technology Officer, and I supervise 2 technicians as well as our virtual meeting coordinator. Overall, our department is responsible for providing a wide range of technology services in order to support the daily operations of the town as a whole. This is inclusive of town departments, boards, committees, in addition to public services such as the town website. The past year, as for everybody, has brought many challenges which we've been able to overcome. We've assisted many employees in a transition from telework back into the office. We've managed unprecedented supply chain issues. And I would say the most enjoyable recent project has been the installation of technology equipment over at our nearly completed North Acton Fire Station. As the chief mentioned, we did get the network up this week, and all the equipment should be installed and wrapped up by the end of this week. Next up, we have Kristen Alexander, who heads our GIS division.
Thank you, Matt. Hello, my name is Kristen Alexander. I'm the GIS officer, and I've worked for the Town of Acton for over 21 years. The Geographic Information Systems, or GIS office, is comprised of 2 staff, myself and an assistant. The office is responsible for map creation and data analysis, related customer service, and overseeing and developing the town's online public GIS called MapGeo. I am also responsible, as Mark mentioned, for managing the town services hotline. Since the hotline began in April 2020, hotline workers have assisted over 3,000 callers, which has been wonderful. Lately, our projects have focused on assisting with stormwater data collection and creating maps for public works, natural resources, and the town clerk offices. And that's it for me. And I'm happy to entertain any questions. Thank you.
Any questions for Mark or Matt or Kristen? Imogen, please.
Yeah, thanks. This is a very quick question. So in terms of what falls under your purview, for example, you mentioned the hotline. Do COVID-19 calls come through that, or is that mostly overseen by our health department?
The hotline does receive COVID-19 related calls, and we try to answer basic questions to help the workload of the nursing and health offices. So they feed me some very basic information that I feed to the hotline workers. And then if it gets into more detailed questions or medical issues or contact tracing, we forward them to either health or nursing.
Got you. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Any other questions for IT? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice work, IT. So for our next group, it's all the land use divisions. And so this is a department that is had a lot of transition in the last year. And actually the transition is going to continue into FY23. So I know there were some questions from Finance Committee and other folks about how to keep track of all the FTEs, because we did some shifting around. There wasn't a net increase unless we identified it as one. We did, however, move some people around. So the land use division, the land use department is located downstairs in Town Hall. It's a busy operation. We have building, health, planning, natural resources, and we'll hear from each of those division heads today to talk a little bit about what they do, and then I can help with any questions about the overall restructuring that we've been working on, if there are any questions about that. But why don't we get right to the good stuff? And we recently appointed a new building commissioner, Tom Moberg, and Tom is going to be our first presenter to talk about the building division budget. Tom, please turn on your camera. It's time for your close-up.
I have tried, but I've been locked out.
Well, we can hear you fine.
Okay. Yeah, it's better just to hear me. I have a face for radio. All right. So with that being said, I'm Tom Moberg. I've been in the town since 1990 as a resident. I've worked in the construction industry since that time. Before that, I was with the 82nd Airborne in the Army. So I'm pretty regimented in how I approach most things. That being said, I was promoted to the commissioner in October, and we just backfilled my old position, hopefully, in a few weeks. We found a candidate, and everybody likes him, so hopefully all will go well. That being said, the budget for this year is the same as it was for last year. We just moved a little bit of some travel funds from John's fund to the building department. Again, we go to Amherst usually for 2 nights overnight for the 3 inspectors to get our CEUs in place. And historically, John's paid that out of his budget. I thought it should just come from the building budget, so that's the only change. Other than that, supplies, salaries, gear, everything has been the same. Even though this year we've done up, about 30% more inspections than last year. Residential construction never stopped. We've done more permits, taken in a lot of money, revenue-wise. Everything in the building end is just very, very fast-paced right now. And with the new backfill my position, I'm hoping it will slow down just a little bit. Other than that, everything is on track for a very successful building department this year.
Thank you.
Tom continues to do a great job with all the construction out there, and also helping to keep 2 very large municipal buildings all the work for the new twin school and the fire station. It's a big effort. So thank you, Tom. Our next presenter will be Cheryl Ball, the Director of the Health Division. Cheryl.
Hi, good evening, everybody. So as John mentioned, I'm Cheryl. I'm approaching my 34th year working for the town. Besides myself, I have a total of 4 FTEs. I have myself, I have a senior health inspector, a health inspector, and a full-time admin. So the health division has general oversight of health operations, which include food, which are like restaurant inspections, septic, camps, housing, pools, freshwater beaches, emergency preparedness, hazardous materials, and sealer of weights and measures. In addition, we routinely apply for and receive grants to promote health and wellness in our community. And we use these grants to plan for public health programming related to the current needs of our community. So that's the fun part of our job. And honestly, I was hoping we'd be in a better situation this year, COVID-wise, but we're still extremely busy with that. I do belong to the vaccine working group. We recently held a pediatric vaccine clinic for about 1,100 children between the ages of 5 and 11. And then we did another 50 yesterday. So we're so glad to see that parents are getting their children vaccinated to help fight this virus. It's been a difficult year. We, besides our regular duties, we've had to step up to the challenge, and we will continue to do so to promote public health for all of our residents. So the health division's budget actually starts on page 82. If you look down on page 83 in the chart, you will see that we did have a slight decrease in the food account. But thankfully, all of our other permits are stable. We believe this decrease in the food account may be indicative of the impact of COVID. And thankfully, we're starting to see some new restaurants come into Acton. So we're looking forward to getting that back up to so it's more static. The general fund budget can be found on page 84. There are 2 increases proposed, one for professional salaries and the other for the phone. The professional salaries and line item has been increased to accommodate the land use reorg that John mentioned. And the phone increase is due to increases in operational costs and new equipment needed to replace older equipment. So then in addition to that, in the appendix and revolving and enterprise funds, which I have a sealer budget, which begins on page 4 in that document, this budget shows a decrease in professional services and an increase from 350 to 550 in the supplies. What we did is just added other supplies and office supplies together. So that's pretty much the same as well. We just put it in one line item. So our sealer equipment is in need of recertification, and the increase in that can also be, that's what we spend that money on. So I just wanted to let you know that. So the budget is currently in line with current expected revenues for that account. So then I have a food revolving fund account, which can be found on page 5. And that shows a decrease in professional services. and which is now, and that decrease is now because we wanted to make sure that that total budget was in line with the current expected revenues that we collect every year. Then in addition, I have a hazardous materials budget, which can be found on page 6, and that shows an increase in the professional salaries, and everything else is level funded. The increase is reflective of position control and some realignment from the other revolving funds that I just mentioned. And then lastly, I have the Septage Enterprise Fund, which can be found on page 15 of that appendix, and you will note an increase in clerical and professional salaries to reflect position control. All of the line items are level funded and in line with the current expected revenues. That's all I have. If you have any questions.
Thank you. Why don't we do Tom Tidman first, and then we'll come back to questions for all? Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, so Tom Tidman is the director of the Natural Resources Division, which is for many years been a division that oversees 3 big operations: cemetery, conservation, and recreation. And we're doing some restructuring that because Tom Tidman has announced his retirement. And so we're trying to figure out, well, we're figuring out, and we've made some changes to the budget. And so Tom is going to present where it is now. But you'll see if you look through the budget that some of the operations have been moved to different parts to align with how we feel is the best way to align those operations to for the organization going forward. So with that, Tom, your last budget workshop presentation.
So much nicer than having to come in on a Saturday morning and do this. Thank you, John. Good evening, everybody. I'm Tom Tidman. I've been with the town since 1987, Natural Resources Director. And as John mentioned, we have 3 divisions. We the Cemetery Division, Conservation Division, and Recreation Division. And Melissa Ryer will speak after me, specifically to the Recreation Division. Composition-wise, for Finance Committee members that may not be aware of how we're composed, we have in the Cemetery Division, we have 4 full-time groundskeepers and a crew chief, or he's actually the cemetery superintendent, and a full-time secretary that's shared with the Conservation Division. Conservation is probably 70% of my job with wetlands protection, and we have 2 part-time people in the Conservation Division too that help with the Arboretum primarily and with wetlands protection. In the Recreation Division, there are 3 full-time people, and Melissa will speak to that. We provide staff support to a number of commissions. We provide staff support to the Conservation Commission, Cemetery Commission, the Recreation Commission, the Open Space Committee, the the Land Stewardship Committee, and the Friends of the Arboretum. So we have a lot of plates in the air at any given time. With respect to the operating budget for FY23, we're level funded with the exception of materials and equipment. And we've asked for a $1,000 increase in that. And in FY23, this summer, we'll be completing the sports pavilion at Nara Park. It's been an ongoing project for a number of years. And materials and equipment would simply help us with any landscaping and or handicap accessibility issues that we still haven't quite gotten complete. In terms of major projects that we're completing this year in FY22, as mentioned, the south building at the sports pavilion is under construction now. That's an interior renovation. That'll be completed in March. Melissa may speak to this, but we plan to ultimately run our summer camp from the sports pavilion, and this will be headquarters for much of Melissa's operation. Also, you might have noticed down at Ice House Pond on Concord Road, there's a new kiosk that's under construction, should be done next week. That'll have informational panels, and it'll talk about the history of the ice house and natural history of Neshoba Brook. That's connected to a trail system, an accessible trail system, and boardwalks that we've constructed over the last summer. So that entire project will be done in the next couple of weeks. In terms of major projects we're looking at for FY23 for next year, ours are really under CPA review right now, our applications. We're looking at making accessibility improvements at the chapel on Concord Road. Currently, you see the beautiful little granite building, but it's completely not accessible. So we're looking at some modifications to help us with that. Kind of an interesting CPA application. The Revolutionary War Monument section in Woodlawn Cemetery is in need of repair, and we're going to have a company come in and straighten all the monuments, and some of them are cracked, obviously, because they're so old, and that's quite an operation. So we're hoping to achieve that this year. In addition, we're working on 53 River Street. Right now, I'm working with John and a bunch of other folks on the permitting for environmental permitting for the dam removal at 53 River Street. That's a great big project that'll take us well into 23 and 24. And for a bunch of us, Melissa, John included, we're working on the open space and recreation plan. And that's a 5-year plan that you can add 2 years to. So it's actually a 7-year update that we're working on right now. It's a state requirement. It puts us in line for state money for grants for land acquisition. And that's about it for NR, if there's any questions.
Can we do Melissa first and then come back for questions for all?
Yeah. So Melissa Ryer oversees our rec division. It's as part of our restructuring. It's going to be no longer part of natural resources. It'll be part of our human services team. But we kept Melissa with Tom for this presentation because they've worked so closely together for a long time. Melissa.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So I've been with the town for almost 11 years now. Recreation currently falls under natural resources along with conservation and cemetery. My office employs 3 full-time staff, so myself, the office manager, and the event and program coordinator. Recreation also has over 40 seasonal positions, including camp, waterfront, park staff for Narrow Park and for 50 Audubon Drive, which is our rec center. Recreation oversees all municipal recreation facilities, parks, and fields. Our largest operations occur at Narrow Park with the summer camp, the beach, concert and event series, and field and facility rentals. Throughout the year, we offer programs for all ages and abilities. Recreation develops and maintains fields, facilities, courts, and playgrounds. My departmental finances operate under a 53 revolving account. We also manage the town's celebrations account and many different gift accounts. My proposed fiscal year 23 budget was created by analyzing expenditures from the previous fiscal years, and some of the major differences have been in building grounds and maintenance line item. It was increased due to all these different scheduled facility maintenance plans that we've come up with. Our bus line item was increased. It was decreased over the past couple of years because of COVID, and we're going to try and bring back field trips for the camps this summer. Counselor wages line item is increased due to the minimum wage increases, and we're adding a new camp this summer. So there's going to be a couple more staff. We're adding a camp at the rec center, and that's called Camp Hilltop. Our equipment repair and services line item was also increased due to many necessary repairs that were at NARA this past year as the park turns 22. The food line item was also increased due to resuming concerts and events after since COVID-19. So we do sell different products at our events. Production costs, they were also increased due to the production, due to popular events and increasing events now that COVID wasn't as bad this past summer. And the sport and recreation line item increased to replace obsolete program equipment. And that is all of my major differences compared to the past fiscal year.
Thank you. And John, you said we have one more.
Yeah, the final division in land use is the planning division led by Kristen Gieshardt.
Hi, good evening, Select Board and Finance Committee members. I'll start by giving an overview of the Planning Division team, which includes a full-time assistant planner, an administrative assistant who assists both the Planning and Building Division, and a part-time cultural resource planner who is assisting the Historic District Commission and the Historical Commission. These three staff members have shown much dedication to advancing the town goals, and I'm very grateful they've joined the planning team this year and for the contributions that they've already made so far. We've held a vacancy in the senior planner role for the past year and are hoping to fill that soon. As John mentioned, I serve as the planning director and zoning enforcement officer. I've been in this position for a year, and I started working for the town about 10 years ago, previously as the assistant planner and then the senior planner. Turning to the budget book, the planning division budget can be found on page 95. The budget is primarily comprised of salaries, but this year we do have one increase to the professional services line item, which is an increase of $15,000 to allow for legal review of 2 to 3 housing-related zoning articles for the coming year. This review would be conducted by a legal firm that specializes in civil rights issues, and it would occur prior to any zoning public hearing. So it would be at a time where we have a draft zoning article that's been put out for public notice, but before that hearing occurs. The goal for this process is to avoid, to the extent possible, disparate impacts or local zoning laws that could unintentionally create barriers and perpetuate existing exclusionary situations. So the budget remains level with the exception of this increase in professional services. The primary services that the planning division provides for the town is staff support for regulatory boards. So the planning board, zoning board of appeals, board of selectmen for site plans and use special permits, and then newly this year, the historic district commission and historical commission. In this role, we manage the permit and public hearing process. We provide professional staff reviews and draft their decisions. We also plan and facilitate public outreach efforts and explore zoning changes that are aligned with the town's master plan and other town planning documents. The division provides staff support also for the Community Preservation Committee, and we administer the Community Preservation Act program. The division serves as the zoning compliance arm of the town as well. So the division reviews building permits for zoning compliance and works with residents and business owners on issues when we receive enforcement complaints. And I'd have to say the most enjoyable part of our job is community development, working with the residents and community members, as well as project management. For the past 8 years, we've been managing the Kelly's Corner infrastructure project, which is scheduled for construction this year. So many residents have dedicated time to this effort, and I think almost every department has played a role in this project. And as of this week, the town has recorded all of the required right-of-way acquisitions and are finalizing payments to property owners with the help of the finance department. I'm happy to report that we were able to work with each property owner to amicably sign all deed grants. The past year, the division was also working on the local rapid recovery program, focusing on assisting Great Road businesses. And we've been continuing to work with Maynard on the Powder Mill Corridor study. In this next year, we'll be focusing on construction mitigation programs for the Kelly's Corner project alongside the new economic development director and working with the sustainability director and natural resource director before he leaves on zoning tools that can really help to foster more sustainable development patterns. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. So questions for Tom Moberg for building, Cheryl for health, Tom Tidman for natural resources and conservation, Melissa for recreation, and Kristen for planning. Mike, is your hand up?
Yes, it is.
Oh, please go ahead.
What I don't see in the budget is, an event that's coming up in about 2 years, which is a once in a lifetime opportunity for Acton. It's the 250th anniversary of April 19th, 1775, and would have a terrific impact on historic districts, public celebrations, museums, tourism, economic development, all across the board. All the surrounding towns, the national parks, the federal government, the state government are all planning big events for this. Is this a non-event for Acton, which I like to call the America started here?
So I can jump in there for this question. This is the subject of a celebration and planning for one. came up during the board's goal setting retreat this year, and I expect it may come up again when we do goal setting again in a few months. It's certainly something that we're prepared to help start working on, and to the extent that budget resources are needed, we could start to identify those and put them in subsequent budgets. I'm not sure how much would be needed in FY23 for such an effort, but if there is a need, we can certainly look at that. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, well, besides the budget, you also need to get a committee together and a planning group and find out what you want to do and how you're going to do it and how much it costs and so on and so forth. So I think it's more than just the budget that we're talking about.
Yeah, we're ready and willing and able to support the community's efforts to plan for that, and we'll be working on that probably soon.
Okay. Thank you, Steve Noon, and then Roland.
I have a question on for Tom, or maybe for Steve Barrett. It's building permit fees. I know mostly our local receipts are being budgeted flat, and I was just wondering what the actual trend is this year. Are fees up, down, or flat?
The total fees are actually up. Everybody's been home for the last 2 years, basically. They've been making new space in their existing basement, their attics, their kitchens. They're spending, time in their kitchens. It seems that since the governor said residential construction was not going to stop, it definitely didn't. We picked up, like I say, 30% roughly on inspections from last year to this year. We've done again another 10% more permits. On the building side, everything is up. So revenue's up as well. The fees haven't changed. We haven't changed them since 2018. I don't see them changing anytime soon. So, we're trying to actually work a little bit with the director for, forgot my train of thought there for a second, renewable energy sources. So trying to get some of the fees down for some of these larger solar products, that are going into town. So we're actually sort of reducing a little bit of fee on the right side of the coin, if you will.
So what's the total of their fees for, say, year to date?
So revenue for the building department last year was $1,958,000.
Which is that more than your budget?
A little bit.
All right. Well, that was my point. Building department is self-funding.
No,
So
I
nice
understand. I understand, and I agree. If I was in a standalone building, it'd be a lot easier to self-fund. But since I'm not, I have to rely also on finance to help with finance ends. So it's a lot of pieces and parts that make it sort of hard for one line item just to be building services only. So
Understand. Don't get me started on allocating indirect costs. Thank you.
if you could see my face, you would see I'm agreeing with you.
Okay, Roland, and then Himichuk.
I just want to thank one of the owners. I want to thank Tom Tippman for his service to the town and wish him well in retirement. Looking at Melissa's budget, page 92, the budget book, Acton's 275th anniversary fireworks. By my calculation, that would be 2010, which is long since been over. So I'm wondering why that's still showing in the budget as a line item when it should be removed. Just a housekeeping issue.
Just a housekeeping issue, correct.
Okay, thank you. Himichuk?
Thank you. And yes, thank you so much, Tom, for all your service to the town. My question is for Kristen. So, can you elaborate a little bit more on the 3 projects that you mentioned fall under the needs for the professional services?
Sure. So this is really looking to have a professional civil rights attorney review any zoning articles that may come forward to the planning board. So any zoning article that gets adopted has to go first to a public hearing to the planning board, and then it can go to public to the town meeting for a public vote. So this would be for a review, similar to how we have engineering peer reviews. This would be a review of those zoning articles that are moving forward to a public hearing. And the attorney, the civil rights attorney, that's who we're thinking would be the best to do this work, would be looking kind of at 2 parts. They'd be looking at any legal implications that the town could be facing by adopting a certain law, or also looking at more policy-related questions of, maybe it's not illegal to adopt something, but is it actually perpetuating? Exclusionary situations in town where it's keeping certain people out of your community? So there's kind of 2 pieces to that. It also includes an initial review of our zoning to get a baseline understanding of where we're at and what we have on the books today.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Mike, is your hand still up?
Sorry.
Okay, anybody else?
That's a good one.
Okay, thanks to all of you very much. Should we take a 5-minute break? So Jim says yes, Roland says yes, Imogen says yes. So we'll take and come back here at 4:15, please.
Good, Bob. Come on up. Come up.
Okay, we'll just give it another few seconds for people to return. Okay, John.
All right, thank you. Welcome back from the intermission, and we're going to finish up the rest of the program. We have about 8 budget groups left to review, and our next one that we're going to discuss is the Memorial Library budget. And here to present on that is its director, Danielle Sabin. Danielle.
Thanks, John. I'm Danielle Sabin. I'm the director of the Memorial Library. I've been with the town for about 6.5 years, and I'm grateful to have the opportunity to meet with you all tonight. The library is a community center, and it's a well-used resource in town, and we are here to meet the informational, educational, and recreational needs of residents of all ages, which is very unique, and we enjoy it. Through the pandemic, we saw increased use of electronic resources, and we offered virtual programs as well as some outdoor programs. We continue to see high use of these resources and also continue to offer virtual programs. Through most of fiscal 21, we provided curbside pickup, and as of June, we were reopened 7 days a week through the school year, 6 days in the summer. Some highlights of fiscal 21 are we circulated over 254,000 materials. We welcomed over 47,000 visitors. We were open we had partial weeks. Our weeks were like half curbside, and then we started to, as things got better, we started to open a few more days. And we held 232 programs for all ages, and Acton has over 14,000 residents who have active library cards. The organizational chart for Memorial Library is on page 98 of your booklet. Our FTE is 18. About 10 of our positions are full-time, and that includes the director, assistant director, department heads, and some librarians. The remainder of the staff are mostly part-time. This helps us a lot with our flexibility because we are staffed 7 days a week for most of the year. The budget begins on page 101. The 4 basic areas of our budget are personnel. This is down slightly. That's mostly due to bringing new people on at lower steps than their predecessors. And materials budget, this is mandated to be at 15% of the total budget in order to qualify for certification in the state aid program. This year, I'm asking for an increase of about 11,000 for non-print materials and 12,000 for print materials. As I mentioned earlier, we saw that rise of, for obvious reasons, folks using the electronic resources at home. That demand still continues. Once people learn how to use something and enjoy using it, they want to keep using it. So we are seeing rising costs in in both print and non-print resources. E-books and e-audiobooks are sometimes what we call pay-per-use model. So whereas if we buy a print book, we can circulate it as many times until it physically falls apart. But with a lot of e-content, it's you're paying as many times as someone uses it, or if you might buy a license and then it expires after 25 uses or things like that. And the other big portion of our budget is our MIS and tech, the MIS line, which includes our Minuteman membership, equipment and software, our website, our events calendar, and museum pass software. So that's just asking for a small increase to continue with the costs of those services as they continue to rise. Does anyone have any questions?
Questions, anyone? I have to say, if you stand in front of the library on a weekend, it's impressive the number of people that go in and out. No questions? Thank you very much, Danielle.
Thanks for your time.
Nice job, Danielle. The next budget that we're going to cover tonight is Acton Nursing Services, which is led by Director Heather York.
Thanks, John. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you. I'm glad you're all well. So I'm Heather York. I'm the director of the nursing service. I've been with the town since 2004. I started as a visiting nurse in the community. I took the clinical manager position in 2005 and the director role in 2010. The nursing department has two distinct parts to it as described on page 103 of the budget book. One is the visiting nursing piece of the agency, where we work under doctor's orders to care for patients in their homes after an illness, an injury, or a surgery. We provide nursing services along with the therapies that are listed and certified home health services. The other part of the department, we provide the public health services for the town, including disease surveillance, a variety of clinics, and health promotion activities. In the last couple of years, as you can all imagine, it's been a lot of disease surveillance, including the contact tracing initiative that we've been doing. On top of that, vaccination clinics, as Cheryl and Anita both mentioned, we have been helping out with that for both seniors last year, the 5 to 11-year-olds this year, and we're looking at a clinic for booster shots for the 12 and above age bracket in town to get those kids boosted. So we've been working closely with the Acton-Boxborough school system, with the exposures and contact tracing in the schools. We've worked with the town, a lot of the town departments that are on this call in a COVID team on a weekly basis, really probably daily basis when this all started, as well as the vaccine team that Cheryl had mentioned that coordinated between the Council on Aging, the nursing department, the health department, the fire department. So thank you to everybody who has done such a great job in the last couple of years. On page 104, the nursing department's overall goal is to provide home services and for those recovering in their homes after the situations I mentioned before, and to promote community health in the town of Acton. So on page 104 in the budget book is our organizational chart. Overall, we have 5.825 full-time employees. You'll see the breakdown. Myself, I'm the nursing director. We have an admin assistant who is also a home health aide, so she covers both of those roles. In our budget, we have allocated funds for 3 per diem nurses who currently all of those positions are open for different reasons, people leaving, retiring, etc., moving to different job titles. We have a nursing clinical manager, a staff nurse who is our main case manager for home health, our community health nurse who is doing the contact tracing alongside myself, and a contract staff member that we have hired to assist with this new surge that we've had. And then we have 3 home health aide positions in the budget, but we currently only have 1 home health aide as our second part-time person has left. So also of note, if you break it down further, for the VNA piece, there's 4.07 full-time employees and then 1.75 full-time employees in the public health budget. The director position, the clinical manager, the admin assistant, and the community health nurse are all pieces of our budget. Our salaries are in both budgets. So as an example, for myself, I'm 66% in the VNA budget and 34% in the public health budget, just to break that down a little bit for you. On page 105 of the budget book, it lists our visits and activity metrics for the agency, distinguishing between the visiting nursing service and the public health activities. On page 106 of the budget book is our VNA budget, the 01522. 89% of this budget is for direct care staff as listed in the org chart I mentioned before. You'll note an increase in the 513000 professional salaries line item. Part of this increase is related to moving our staff nurse back into that budget, the VNA budget 100%. She was allocated for, I believe, 14% in the public health budget, but she doesn't technically do a lot of that public health piece as our previous staff nurse did, who had a public health background. So we've moved that position back onto that line item. So you'll notice that there's an increase on the professional salaries. When we separated the VNA and the public health budgets in 2012, we did that split to show and identify exactly what duties were being done both in the VNA and the public health budget. And then, let's see, notable changes to this budget also, the 520400, the equipment and software. I increased that by 100%, and mainly because it has been going up the last few years based on the vendors we use for our Medicare software has been going up, and I haven't increased this for quite a while, so I'm looking to do that. The 521500, the telephone, that also covers vendor increases. This is specifically for our on-call service for when the office is closed. So that's from 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. in the morning, Monday through Friday, and then for weekend and holiday coverage for the on-call nurse. 521900 professional services, that's our marketing line item. I'm decreasing this by 10,000 related to cutting a large yearly advertisement that we did in the Home Care Alliance of Massachusetts vendor directory. So what this was, it went to all the hospitals, discharge planners, skilled nursing facilities, and it would outline the agencies in the area by demographic. And we haven't seen a huge significant increase in referrals for doing this, and we've done it for a number of years, and the cost just really isn't worth what we're doing, what we're getting back from it. So we are removing that. We'll be focusing more on local advertisements such as Minuteman Senior Services, where we're a sponsoring partner for them throughout the year for some of their different fundraising efforts, one of which is their March for Meals that comes up in March. And they advertise, will be on their advertisements that go out to folks who are specifically homebound. And then 522700, the contractual services, I'd like to increase that by 10,000. That's related to the increase in our therapy requests. We have had a lot more therapy, specifically physical therapy, increase in services over the last couple of years. A lot of that really has been to do with folks being home, the seniors being home, not doing things, being sedentary, and having falls at home because of this. So doctors' offices have been doing a lot of referrals for physical therapy. So we're hoping, I'm increasing that line item to that. And that is our VNA budget. On page 107 is the public health budget, the 01520. 85% of this is salaries. You'll note that the actuals for the professional salaries in fiscal year 21 were low. This is related to not having a public health nurse on staff between October 2020 to maybe mid-April of this past year, 2021. And then it also encompasses removing that staff nurse from the public health budget and putting her whole salary back in the VNA budget. Other notable changes are the medical supplies and then the professional services line. When this budget was built back in 2012 and we were asked to allocate how much money we were spending on public health alone so that it pulled it into a separate budget, we basically, did the salaries and then we lumped everything else into the medical supplies. That's always covered clinics, vaccine that we would purchase, public health programming, any supplies that we needed for clinics that we've had, flu clinics, now COVID clinics, things like that. So now that line item, medical supplies 540250, will only include vaccines that are purchased and clinic supplies. And the 521900, we're making that a line item specifically to show what we're doing for public health outreach. So that's reallocating 10,000 from the medical supplies. The focus for this is that we would like to focus on one of the select board's goals of mental health programming. So we have started doing some of that in the Human Services and Senior Center building here at 30 Sudbury Road. Specifically, we've done some mindfulness, meditation, specifically at night at our new hours where we're open until 7:30 on Tuesday evenings. These are things that we're working together with some of the other departments, specifically the community services coordinator, to get some other ages into our building and offer different programming for them, specifically with the mental health venue, in mind. And then I'm also hoping to increase those programmings as we move forward and working with some of the other departments. So just in closing, I just want to thank John, for his guidance over the last couple of years and support for all of our town departments who really have faced the challenge of COVID in the last 2 years. And that is just the brief overview of the nursing budget. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you for facing these COVID challenges over the past 2 years. I think you've been at every Board of Health meeting and, done so many things, that you didn't have to do before. It's been, you've done a wonderful job. Questions from anyone? No? Thank you very much. Oh, wait, one question. Steve Noon, please.
Hi, Heather. I wouldn't let this one go past without asking a question. I'm just a little surprised that your total visits are down, and I would think in this health emergency, it would have been up.
Right. So the visits definitely have been down. When we first were hit with COVID, we had a lot of reduction in the referrals we were getting. There weren't a lot of home care referrals coming out. We have increased, especially after we opened up, and started moving forward from this last summer. But yes, the visits are definitely down, but visits don't always coincide with admissions. So that's a piece of it too. We are seeing more, unfortunately, referrals now that are COVID related with this new surge, as they're trying to get folks out of the hospital, which totally makes sense.
So I was thinking because just elective procedures and that stuff was down. I thought maybe your business would be off. The elective procedures definitely were lower, so we didn't have a lot of those, but we did get surprisingly a lot of physical therapy specific referrals related to people being deconditioned and falling, unfortunately, at home as folks really stayed home for months at a time. That was definitely a challenge and something that we saw a shift of. Okay. Thank you, Heather. Thank you for all you do.
Sure. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, Director York.
Thank you.
Nice job, Heather. Our next department is our police department, which is led by Chief Rich Burrows.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
I think Deputy Chief Cogan is gonna be brought in.
Deputy Chief needs to be promoted. Jim Cogan.
Yeah, I think we're trying.
Yep, there he goes.
There he is. Jim, would you just introduce yourself for me, please?
Good evening, everyone, members of the Select Board and Finance Committee. My name is Jim Cogan. I've been with the Police Department since 1984.
Thank you. I'm Rich Burrows, as I said, I'm the Chief of Police. I've been with the Town of Acton for 9 years, past January. March will mark 5 years as your police chief, and June will mark 36 years for me in the industry of law enforcement. I'm going to cover police, dispatch, and animal control tonight. And I'd first like to thank everybody that works in those departments for their work in the past couple of years, their professional and dedicated service through this pandemic. It's been difficult. It's been a kind of a moving target. We weren't able to just shut down and regroup for a couple of days and figure out what the new protocols were going to be. We were doing them on the fly, working closely with the fire department and health department and nursing and all the other departments in town. So I'd like to recognize them for all the work they did this year. The first page is page 110, and that's the police department overview. We've got some patches on there at the bottom of the page. Breast cancer awareness, we've got autism, and we've got domestic violence. Some of the officers you might have seen back in October wearing the pink or purple, recognizing those months. And in April, you might see some officers wearing the autism awareness patches. And if any of you would like one of those patches, shoot me an email, we'll make that happen. On the next page is the org chart for the police department. I just noticed we didn't add the jail diversion clinician yet. We'll have that in there for next year. And at the bottom of the page is the picture of us receiving our accreditation last January. Next page is full-time equivalents. We've got 46 listed. The change in that is the addition of the jail diversion clinician. What's not listed is the special police officers. They're not assigned a set shift, but there's 4 of them, and they do help us out with traffic and detail. So that's about 50 in police. We've got 9.6 in dispatch, but 3 of those dispatchers, because they are assigned shifts, are only 0.6, but there's 11 bodies in dispatch. And then we've got 2 part-time animal controls. So we have about 60 people under these 3 departments. And we've got 3 of the unions that Mary Ann mentioned earlier. The next page, there's a quick graph showing police responses. We broke down the arrests in the section 12s. And the reason we did that is part of that jail diversion program that we've been a part of. The one we've been part of for several years was a community group of all the departments that answer to Concord District Court. We applied for last year and received a grant, actually this year. Well, no, we're in 2022. 2021, we applied for a grant to get our own clinician full-time for the Town of Acton, and we were successful in getting that. Instead of having a clinician we share with other towns that was only in town basically 1 day a week, we'll have somebody in town 5 days a week. We've identified somebody. She's been hired. Her name is Beth Van Emberg. She is a local. She grew up here in Acton, graduated from AB. We're very excited to have her. She was over at ActonTV today doing an interview with the deputy chief, and we should have a press release out next week so everybody gets to know who she is and what her credentials are. And then we've had a lot of changes in the police department this year. We've had some retirements. We had Sergeant Fred Rentschler retire after 32 years of service. We had Sergeant Dan Silver retire after 21 years of service. Scott Howe after 28 years of service. And Chris Prale is going to retire at the beginning of next month after 33 years of service. We've had some promotions. Chris Hodges, although he's only been with us for 5 years, he worked about 10 years before at a large department in Connecticut where he's already a sergeant. He's been promoted. Keith Campbell has worked here 21 years. He's been promoted. He grew up here in Acton, AB grad. Most recently, our senior school resource officer. He served in that role for over 11 years. And he's also coaching 3 sports up at the high school. He's going to be missed up at the campus. Kevin Heffernan, again, another local. He's worked for us for 26 years, grew up in town, AB grad. He most recently, some of you with firearms licenses have met him because he's been processing those for many years. And talk about the jail diversion. And the other thing I'll talk about with police quickly is the hybrid fleet. We had a lot of questions at a time. Of our 13 marked patrol cars, today we have 10 of them as hybrids. We went back and looked at calendar 2021. We traveled approximately 148,000 miles, and there was quite a few hours idling. Our sustainability director, Andrea Becerra, did some calculations for us and came up with a net savings of approximately 11,879 gallons, $18,000 in gas, the cost, and 232,000 pounds of CO2 emissions reduced by using those hybrids as opposed to gas cruisers. And we're looking forward to the possibility of adding a full electric car to the fleet and just waiting to work with the Green Advisory Board on that. The budget numbers for the police, the first time since I've been here, we're reporting a reduction in the police department budget. They haven't settled their contracts yet. And with those retirements, when we look at the position control for next year, we've got a lot of new people coming in at the lower step. So that's why there's a little bit of a reduction there. Animal control, the budget stays the same. We have 2 part-time animal control officers. And for dispatch, slight increase, basically contractual obligations. Any questions on police, dispatch, and animal control?
Roland, please.
Hybrids are going, what we anticipate with saving fuel and better for the environment. You said you have 10 out of the 13. Is there any plans on replacing those last 3 with hybrid vehicles anytime soon?
Yes, FY23, we have 2 cruisers budgeted in there. So that'll bring us up to 11.
Mustang Mach-E would look good for the police department, in my opinion, for the electric car. Have seen the dog out there. They had him at the Veterans Day celebrations. I took my father-in-law too, so it was good to see the dog out in the community and using that. And I think that's all my questions that I have for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hemminger.
Yes, thank you. So my question is on the firearm stipend. So I see that there was a decrease in the percent, but I'm wondering, it's still quite a lot. I mean, the budget outlines that there's 25,000 that we're allocating for this year. I was just wondering if you could explain that.
Certainly. It still says firearm stipend, but it's basically a stipend to cover all of the different equipment, specialized equipment that the officers are now carrying and trained on and using in the community. AEDs, automated defibrillators, Narcan, the firearms themselves, and all the equipment. So it's one stipend for all those equipment.
Thank you. And off the top of your head, do you know how much goes specifically to firearms and how much goes to other specialized equipment?
It's one stipend that covers all the equipment. So if we got a new piece of equipment tomorrow, we don't have to add to the stipend. It's already included in this one.
Okay, thanks. And then just checking if I had any more questions. I think that's it. But I'm really excited for the clinical responder position. I think that'll be a really, really great addition and will add a very necessary aspect to our town. So thanks.
Thank you.
Roland.
One last question was on the dispatch. I know that we had some increases this year. And looking at the regional agreement, do we know when anything's going to happen on that, or what the time frame is to looking to go with the regional dispatch and how that'll impact the town?
We don't have a set date. We are moving along. I think we're kind of within our timelines. We're supposed to be meeting hopefully next month with the project manager. And then the next step would be looking at an executive director. And then once they're on board, we'd be looking at applying for the next round of grants through the state, which I think is due in April. We'd find out late June or July. So I think we're still on track for sometime next fall.
Now, Himmajagan.
Sorry, I just remembered the other question. So under professional services, there seems to be a decrease in the budget. I was wondering why that was and potentially what was reallocated.
Yes, so last year we had put money in there to increase the ability to have the clinicians' time in the town of Acton. And now that we have the new clinician coming on board, we reduced that because that might only be what we need to meet the needs that might be above the grant. The grant's going to cover the majority of it, we hope, but we're still not sure depending on how it all plays out.
Thank you.
Any more questions for the chief? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice work, Chief, Deputy. Our next budget program, which we're going to talk to you about tonight, is our Public Works team, led by Director Corey York, and he will introduce the rest of his team as part of his presentation.
Hi, good evening. We'll be presenting the DPW budget. It starts on page 122 of the budget proposal. My name is Corey York. I'm the DPW Director for the town. Along with me is Chin Ru Pang, who's the town engineer. Kyle Maria, who is our DPW operations superintendent, and Andrea Rastine, who's our public facilities superintendent. As part of a lot of the services we have in town, one of the things that had been talked about early with land use was sort of the shifting around the land use. One of those things that has impacted with the DPW is the Cemetery and Parks Division is being shifted from natural resources to the DPW. So you'll see on the org chart on 123, you can see that kind of falling under that division falling under the DPW. And it increases the FTEs for the shifting of those people to about 40. In addition, we've been working with the health director with the stormwater management program for the town. We've been kind of sharing responsibilities as part of the shift. We're looking to make the oversight entirely under DPW. So makes it just kind of streamlines that a little bit. So there's a stormwater revolving fund that the health director currently manages that will be allocating over to the DPW as well. And as Robert Howard had mentioned, there's the North Acton Fire Station is moving along, and Andrea's been heavily involved in that. She would just wanted to make a couple comments.
You're muted, Andrea.
There we go. Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Happy to be here. So, yes, with the fire station, I am totally enjoying the first time of a big build and participating with the police chief with that within the warrant article budget. We're currently working on all the closing documents, and I also want to thank the IT department for their hard work. So as Corey said, I'm the superintendent for the facilities division. I've worked for the town of Acton for a total of 35 years as of 2 weeks ago. I started in 1987 with municipal properties, which included supporting the conservation department, and was promoted to superintendent in 2015. The employees within our division, there's a total of 6. Our new crew leader for 2.5 years, Craftsman has been for 12 years. and 4 custodians with a total of 23 years of experience in our division. Our org chart is on page 123. The operating budget is located on pages 140 through 145. Facilities division oversees construction, renovation, maintenance, repair, custodial services, and building maintenance, including mechanical systems, elevators, generators, all the fun stuff. A majority of the budget increases are related to the North Acton Fire Station. That will be, as Chief said, hopefully online. It will be online by early February. There's been a few delays due to the supply chain and back orders. The major change in my budget is the street lighting account, which was based on FY20 and 21 actuals. I can run through the specifics of what that covers if everybody wants me to go through that. There's a few capital projects that I have put in for new ones this year for design and construction for a tight tank for Fire Station 3, completing the fire alarm stations at Fire Stations 1 and 3, and lost my place. There's engineering, design, and development for bid documents for HVAC pipe insulation valves at the town hall, and an engineering review to provide, which involves an engineering review for those valves as well. And that's a nutshell. If anybody has any other questions.
We can finish up the DPW budgets and then do the questions all at once.
Thank you.
The operating budgets for the DPW starts on page 122. You'll see the engineering division is the first one on page 129. That budget has only changed per position control for the 2 positions that are in there. On page 133, you'll see the highway division budgets. That budget has been adjusted. It's the same per the position control. As part of that, there was a new seasonal worker position that was added. As you get on the budget, you'll see in the contractual line item, which is used by our trees and grounds division for a lot of the contracted work. You'll notice an increase in that, and that was to account for, in addition to the tree work that goes on around town, we're trying out sort of contracting out some ground maintenance services. The hope is it'll allow the tree warden and his crew to free them up from some of the mowing and activities and focus on some of the more specialized work related to trees and things like that. So we wanted to try that out this year and see if that would help. On our roads budget, there was no change on that one. Snow and ice, there was an adjustment for the union contract. And as police mentioned, with sort of the new fleet coming on board for our fuel budget on page 137, we have decreased those fuel line items, looking at our prior fiscal year uses, but also knowing that we have some new energy efficient fleet coming online. So we've tried to reduce that accordingly to reflect that. We had some reductions in our machinery budget to account for some prior actuals you'll see for the repairs. Our special projects budget, there was no change on that one. Andrea just gave her update on the facilities. If you go to the appendix, as far as for the transfer station, on page 16, you'll see the line items for trash and recycling. Trash has increased slightly. The recycling item has gone up a good amount to try to reflect sort of the current pricing that's been going on over the last year or two. You also see some reductions in the supply line items related to things like the page and throw bags. That's just looking at our trends. So we've decreased those accordingly. And there was a decrease in the capital line item. We bought a larger piece of equipment last year. This year we're looking to buy a replacement grinder unit for what we use over there. This unit can be dual purpose to allow uses for the highway division as well, processing some of the materials they do for road projects, as well as the recycling items that are over at the transfer station. On page 18, we have the sewer budget. You'll see some increase in the electricity line item that is reflecting the trends for the bills over there. There's an adjustment for the contractual line item per the contract for annual increases, and a decrease in the account for the capital based on our current upcoming fiscal year needs projections for that. As we go through our capital items, we have a capital request in for complete street programs. So that would cover studies related to looking into South Main Street, sort of down by Main Street where the Central Street intersection sort of intersects, and kind of looking at that corridor because there's so many challenges there as far as close proximity intersections. We're looking at some streetscape studies as well as some other roadway intersection studies, design and implementation. So that article would cover a lot of that kind of work. We have our sidewalk program that's ongoing. This money would cover the ongoing design and construction for our sidewalk throughout town that we work off a priority list that's been developed. So we have several projects that are in motion right now in different stages. So this would help us to get some of these projects that are almost fully designed or ready for construction to keep those moving. As well as we have an article related to sort of bridge and culvert design. So we have some money in there to help us sort of stay on track with maintaining these structures so that they're safe for the public and coordinating with other projects that are going on. We're also working closely with our sustainability director on the new fleet replacement program. So looking at the town fleet, finding a way to implement more energy efficient vehicles across the board for all the different departments. We have an ongoing public shade tree assessment program. So we can get some funds underway to keep that moving forward. We also have an article capital request for our stormwater management system. So we have a permit through the EPA through the MS4. So this would help us keep that program moving and staying in compliance with those requirements, and getting a better sort of inventory of that system and keeping it up to snuff as far as keeping it compliant and keeping the environment safe. We have another capital request for sort of an asset management program to help us with our document scanning and getting the information online for the public as well as staff to help with that. And lastly, we have a capital request for a dam management program, which would allow us funds to look more into the Bellows Farm Mill Dam, end of Wheeler Lane. It's a low risk, low hazard dam. About every 10 years, we have to do an inspection. It was done about a year ago. The structure was deemed unsafe, so it was recommended that we go through an emergency action plan and then follow up with some future steps. So this allocation of $25,000 would help us sort of that first step of looking at that plan and trying to figure out the best approach moving forward to make that safe. And Andrea touched base on her capital as well. So that's pretty much it for our DPW. We can open up for questions.
Roland, please.
Reading recently that with COVID going on, a lot of people are getting a lot more shipments at home. You see Amazon in my neighborhood, FedEx, UPS, constantly all day long. And wondering if we are getting any more money for our recyclables, especially cardboard. There was on NPR the other day that there is a mill in Maine that does the first level of processing to break it down, and their demand is so huge right now for their, I'll say pulp, I don't know the technical name for it right now, that they're asking their residents to drop off their cardboard boxes directly at the mill.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if we've been seeing any uptick in the price that we're getting per ton versus what we did, say, a year or two ago.
Not really. We've been working with the vendor. There was a slight uptick, I think, over the summer from what I was hearing with the market pricing, but it's taken a turn according to what we've been hearing. So I've been working with the DEP, trying to look more closely at the market rates, but the pricing so far hasn't been great over the last year or so. I'm hoping that will turn around.
Other questions? Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Nice work, Public Works team. So next up is a large group of staff and team members that follow in the town manager's office. But actually, first, I'd like to have the town clerk, Eva, who has been with the town for a while and does a really nice job for us. I'd like to start with Eva, and then I'll go into the town manager's office and another team that's as part of that group. But Eva, if you could get us started. Eva, who did 3 elections last year, 2 town meetings. What do we have planned for 23?
Lots of things. Thank you very much, John. So my name is Eva Skaratic. I'm the town clerk. I have worked for the town for 28 years. I've been town clerk for 18 years. The current population of the town is 20,800. We have just under 16,000 voters in town. After the federal census in 2020, Acton was redistricted and added another precinct. We now have 7 precincts for Acton. The plus in voting would be that we all vote at the same location at the junior high. We do have plenty of space for this extra precinct, so work out excellent. The new precinct map is going to be available on the town website. It is there currently for anyone that wishes to look at it. It is on the election page. The town clerk's office just recently hired a deputy town clerk, which is really exciting. He's doing a great job. The town clerk's office is responsible for all elections, federal, state, and local, all town meetings, and final reporting to the state. Also processing dog licenses. In 2021, we licensed 2,070 dogs. We are currently at 1,027. We also process vital records, births, deaths, and marriages, licenses, and certificates. Public records request. In 2021, we had 75 requests. So far this year, we have 6, which are going really well. The town clerk's budget is located on page 153. Excuse me, my professional salaries increase is due to the hiring of my new deputy town clerk. We have decreased in the supplies a little bit. My election budget is located on page 155. The salaries has decreased for election staff there. In addition to using election workers, we have used town staff to assist with elections and will continue to do so. I'd like to take this time to thank all of my election staff and all the town staff that has assisted in every aspect of elections and town meetings. We have increased the contractual services in the election budget due to this additional state election that we will have this fiscal year. At this point, I thank you very much, and I'll answer any questions you might have.
Questions from anyone for the town clerk? I don't see any. Thank you very much, Eva.
Thank you for having me.
Nice work, Eva. Nice work, Eva. So next is the town manager's office, and I'll just go through on page 147 with a description of some of the team members that are part of that group. So Mark Hall, our assistant town manager, who you saw earlier, Lisa Tommel, who is here off camera helping keep track of the meeting. And then we have other people that are part of the office that are shown on the org chart. Our community resources director, Laura Ducharme. our Director of Intergovernmental Affairs, Austin Spanowitz. Customer Services and Communications System. This is actually a position that works out of the Human Services Building and provides front desk coverage. It's just part of our office extended over there. And then our newest part of the team is our Economic Development Director, Julie Pierce-Onos, and also the Sustainability Director, who you'll hear from later. And this year we're proposing a new position based on the direction from the Select Board and what was approved at town meeting last year, which would be a diversity officer, which we are in the process of doing a study to develop that job description, and that will be ready by the summer. So why don't we start with Laura, and Laura can tell us a little bit about what she does for the community.
Hi, good evening. A little bit of what I do for the community is a lot of social service. Basically, my position works with residents who are under the age of 60, and they contact me through various communication sources. Throughout the pandemic, we did a lot of virtual meetings and email exchanges to provide information, but many people do come into the building, and they have been coming into the building even during this Omicron surge. So families and individuals can come and ask basically any type of social service related question, a resource related question. We handle things such as food insecurity. We assist with housing applications. I do a lot of apartment listings and providing a listing of apartments that may not be subsidized in town, but they are the private rental markets. A lot of people request that from me. We do fuel assistance. We help people enroll in health insurance. We have done a lot of work throughout the last year and a half with special programs that we haven't had before in Acton due to the pandemic. And through the CARES Fund, we did a mortgage assistance program and a rental assistance program. And that was a collaboration with the Regional Housing Services Office and my office. And together we were able to assist 43 renters and about 15 homeowners with assistance specifically for rent and mortgages and the impact it had on their situations during the pandemic. We also have a childcare grant that came in the pandemic that we still have going right now, and that has been very successful. Acton has allocated right now $97,000 in childcare subsidies that will have run from February of last year, and it will run through June 30th of this year. So we've helped a lot of families in a lot of different ways throughout the pandemic. The childcare grant, has been wonderful. And I want to thank John and the other regional towns that have worked together to get this for the community. We also did a kindergarten grant. That was another small grant, but we also had assisted 9 families with tuition for full day kindergarten. And that will continue through June through the ARPA funds. So we're also working with the school department to begin to start programs that will help lower the cost of all-day kindergarten and also provide scholarships. And the same with the community ed program. So both of those programs up until now haven't had that resource available. We haven't been able to help families in the community with anything like that, including summer camp, including after school care, regular child care. There just hasn't been a resource available until now. So it was pretty busy. It hasn't slowed down. It's been busy, since COVID and before COVID. I don't see the need decreasing anytime soon. The pandemic has certainly opened up a window of need that maybe these residents would not have had before COVID. So we are seeing a lot of new individuals and families that have requested help. I don't know if anybody has any questions about any of the services that we provide or how they're provided. We also work very closely with United Way and other local charities and organizations to provide, financial support to residents as well. That's a big part of my role here.
Questions for Laura? Thank you very much, Laura. Oh, wait, Imogen.
Imogen, I have a question.
Thank you. Yeah, so thank you so much, Laura. The work that you do is really vital to the community. So you mentioned that, and this is just kind of getting a sense for the scope of your work. You mentioned that you don't see the need decreasing anytime soon, especially with people in need of social services, people in need for advice and recommendations regarding, for example, their rent or resources on that end. So I'm wondering, just in your opinion, where is the most need, kind of just based on what you've seen?
If we're looking at today, based on the need today and maybe, throughout the pandemic, it certainly is rent. Rent has always been a need. Certainly has always been a need. It's increased. The need has increased during the pandemic. I think the food assistance, I have been seeing more of that, but I think during the pandemic, the community really stepped up and there was a lot of resources available for people outside of my office, where the schools were providing the meals, the food pantry was providing, extra support. So in the EBT money went up on the food stamps cards, and the schools were giving free lunch. So food is still a need, but it's not as big. But the largest need right now, I think, is rent and fuel assistance. I mentioned it in staff meetings, and I mentioned it like in our department meetings, that we have residents right now that honestly have no income coming into the home. Like, the pandemic, unemployment ended on Labor Day around September 4th, and they have not had any income since then. And there's probably a variety of reasons why that is, but we have people facing this now. And here we are going into February, and savings have run out. The child care benefit stopped at the end of December. Some people had some support through the state for rental assistance, but they may have exhausted that already, depending on how long they've been out of work. So we are looking at, I can't predict the future, but I think there's going to be a lot more crisis. I anticipate a lot more crisis. People are emailing me all the time. There's been 10 requests for rent help. Somebody else needs help with a phone bill. There's just different things. So it's concerning to me, absolutely concerning. I know that it may not be unique just to Acton, but we're working in it every day, and I'm getting the calls and seeing the people. I am worried. I am worried for the state of some people, because they truly have no earned income or unearned income coming into the home. So, yeah.
Christine.
Great, thank you. And maybe this is slightly outside of your wheelhouse, but are you aware of what the drivers are for this current situation? Is it a lack of? It just seems like there's a lot of jobs out there right now, but is it a healthcare and or childcare issue that's the blockage? Do we know? Do we have any sense?
It could be a little bit of both. I've tried to ask people, and I get different responses. And some of the responses are, well, I don't want to get the vaccine, so I can't go back to work because I don't want the vaccine. Some are saying the work that they want isn't available, or who's going to hire me right now? I've been out of work for a long time. I don't have the skill set. So it's all different things. I think that, people have a lot of hesitancy, for whatever reasons. But I think a good, to be encouraging people to go look for work and, try to begin to reestablish that part of their lives. I think it's hard. I think they've been home for a long time, and the longer they continue to stay home, the harder it's going to be to step back into that working environment. Yeah, I don't know. It's some people drove for Uber, for example, and they're scared. Some people are scared to go back to work. They don't want to get sick, all kinds of reasons.
Thank you.
All kinds of things.
Yep, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, thank you, Laura, very much.
Okay, nice work, Laura. As I mentioned earlier in the presentations, we did some restructuring of the land use department. One of those changes was to move the economic development role out of the land use department and into the town manager's office, partly because as an advocate for the business community, economic development director, it was sometimes, it was challenging to also be overseeing permitting. And so having them separate provided a more direct service to the business community, which is a select board goal. And I'm very pleased to introduce, for those of you that haven't met, her, Julie Pierce-Onos, who started in the role of economic development director about a month ago, and is off to a fast start. And there isn't a budget necessarily for the economic development program. It's part of the town manager's budget, but I just wanted to give you all a chance to meet Julie, who's also going to be presenting to the select board on Monday night. So, Julie.
Thank you, everyone. So as John said, I'm Julie Pierce-Onos, the Economic Development Director, and I've been here about 1 month. And so I don't have budget numbers to share with you, but I'm really excited to share my 3 service goals with you guys. So first off, I am that source of connection and information for our business community. My goal really is to initiate a communication strategy that's specifically designed for the business community. And measurable outcomes that I have in mind for this area would be, just the number of businesses and property owners I'm able to meet and build relationships with, updating the website continually, sending out information, and hosting helpful events. My second goal is related to sustaining and retaining existing businesses. So from those relationships that I build, my intention is to identify trends and needs. From those, I can shape my efforts to support really what is needed right now. We really appreciate and want to keep the businesses that we already have. So again, I always think about measurable outcomes. So here that's, business owners being able to have someone to call, stop in, email me, what have you. I can help them resolve problems, help them understand regulations, maybe be that person who translates what they thought was a huge roadblock. Maybe it's not. Maybe things just need to be communicated in a different way. And just any other way that I can find to either make it easier or clearer how to do business in Acton. And then finally, my goal is to attract new businesses or to help the existing businesses to grow and thrive. So measurable outcomes here would be the ways in which I can partner with other departments. Kristen mentioned we'll be working together on, and planning mentioned how we'll be working together to mitigate some of the interruption of the Kelly's Corner construction, partnering with, say, DPW and some of the other departments on supporting the development of the infrastructure like wastewater management, also pursuing state and federal funds in support of special initiatives in town. And, just anything that I could do, whether it's kind of out front or behind the scenes, to make it possible that we have a structure where businesses can thrive. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And I'm really excited to dive into this work.
Thank you so much. Any questions for Julie? Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Julie. Nice job. Julie works right on the same floor as I do in the town hall, so come by and say hello sometime. So also on the same floor, in the very same location, is our Director of Intergovernmental Affairs, Austin Zaganowicz. Austin does many things for this organization. One of them is oversee transportation, which he's going to talk to you a little bit about tonight. Austin.
Thanks, John, and hello, everyone. As John mentioned, my name is Austin Zaganowicz. I've had the pleasure to serve in the town manager's office for just over 2.5 years now. And as John mentioned, one of my principal responsibilities is overseeing the transportation services for the community. As you can imagine, and I'm sure well aware, the transportation industry the past several years has been significantly impacted, and I'm proud that Acton has continued to demonstrate leadership at the local level and providing these services for the community. It's also nice to see that Acton residents are actually, their confidence and comfort in using public transit, especially over the past year, has been restored, and ridership on our services has actually increased the first 6 months of this fiscal year compared to the similar 6 months of fiscal year 21 has actually increased 70%. So we're actually seeing folks comfortable and getting back and using our services, which is great. Some highlights of the past year, we've provided shuttle services for some of the town-sponsored vaccine clinics, especially on some weekends that were mentioned by my colleagues earlier. We've also reintroduced weekly trips to the Acton Food Pantry and local market basket. And we've also introduced a microtransit pilot, which is a really exciting initiative where we've partnered with a local taxi company, not only to provide supplemental transportation services during the day, but also identifying a transportation gap night and weekend service. So we've been able to provide that service for folks as well, which is great, an alternative form of transportation. I will note that actually 30% of all our trips are for medical purposes, and 70% of our riders are actually seniors. So this is a critical service for access to medical needs, education, employment. So this is an important service that is well supported at town meeting. The budget can be found on the last page of the appendix, and information about the services as well as supporting data can be found on page 161 of the budget book. Some of the proposed highlights, I guess, of fiscal year 23, you'll notice it's just under a 24% increase for fiscal year 23. Most of that is within the contractual services line item. This is the increase in this line item is actually attributed to restoring fixed route service to the community in collaboration with the MBTA and some of our regional partners. We believe the upcoming fiscal year will be a great opportunity to reintroduce this service, not only for residents to be able to access locations around town, but also for commuters to be able to access the train station again. And the professional service increase is actually an expansion of the microtransit pilot that has been very successful over the past few months. And with that being said, happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Austin? No, I don't see any. Thank you very much, Austin.
Thank you. Nice work. Other budgets in the town manager's office include the budget for town meeting, which doesn't have a lot of changes in it. But another more emerging budget program is a sustainability program led by Andrea Becerra. And I'd like to welcome Andrea to talk a little bit about, or a lot, if she wants, about sustainability.
Good evening, everyone. I've been with the town almost 1 year. Sustainability Director. I'm located in the Red House next to Town Hall. On page 158 and 159, you can find more information on the mission of the office and services, as well as details on the recommended budget. My role sits under the Town Manager's Office. Services include a variety of projects and initiatives that act on the Select Board's goals set out on the environmental policy, as well as the climate emergency declaration passed at town meeting in 2020. This includes everything from providing resources and information that supports Acton residents and businesses that want to be more sustainable and reduce their energy use and greenhouse gas emissions, as well as working with other departments, including land use, public works, government affairs, police, and economic development, to support projects that address issues around energy, buildings, natural resources, and transportation. You'll note in the org chart on page 158 the addition of an environmental compliance analyst, which has been recommended to support the Department of Public Works, Engineering, and Sustainability Office with day-to-day operations and data analysis to support the town's sustainability goals, including wastewater and stormwater compliance analysis, technical analysis related to energy use, emissions, and solid waste and recycling. The position would be partially funded through the Sewer Enterprise Fund, Roadway Maintenance Revolving Fund, Stormwater Revolving Fund, and Transfer Station Enterprise Fund. Funding in the budget also includes support to continue our Abode program, which will be pulled from line item 521900. Abode provides no-cost consultations with technology experts, enabling residents, businesses, and developers to adopt clean heating and cooling at best quality and cost. Since launching the program in September of last year, Abode has supported over 42 residents with their electrification questions, including technical and spec reviews of heat pump projects and connection to incentives to lower installment costs. They've also hosted 3 webinars, including one for local contractors interested in getting trained as heat pump installers, and 2 informational sessions, one on air source heat pumps and another on ground source heat pumps. They're also equipped to support us with the implementation of the PACE program, which helps provide financing for energy improvements on commercial and industrial buildings, multifamily properties with 5 or more units, and buildings owned by nonprofits. You'll also see 100% of my salary is now funded in this general fund budget. This is a change from fiscal year 22, when several fund sources were used. So this is why you see a increase on this salary line item by 109%. I did not get that much of a salary increase. In the time I've served as sustainability director, we've applied and received funding for over $274,000 in grants, which have covered the cost of developing our climate action plan, energy efficiency upgrades in the Red House and Memorial Library, funding to help offset the cost of purchasing 2 hybrid police vehicles and lease our first fully electric vehicle, funding for a transportation fellow to work with us in the coming summer and support the sustainability office as well as the transportation and planning departments. We also received funding to cover a study that will include a list of priorities and action steps to switch to clean heating and cooling for 7 key energy consuming public buildings owned by the town and schools. Finally, we received 10 fully funded e-bike stations for 2 Acton Housing Authority properties, and are candidates to receive fully funded e-bike stations for a few key public locations, including an e-bike station to help connect commuters to the South Acton commuter rail station. I also just want to give a shout out to Andrea Ristine, who's my only neighbor in the Red House, and has been an endless fountain of wisdom in the past year on all things mass energy insight, munis, green communities reporting, and just all the things that come with learning the ropes in my first year with the town. Thank you, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Questions for Andrea? I have one question. When are the e-bike stations going in time for this year, this biking year?
So we've been told to actually keep this news quiet, so I'm not making it public what the funding source is. So it's not public news yet, but the ones for the Acton Housing Authority pretty soon, definitely in this year, and I suspect in the next few months. And then the other funding source that we just became aware of, that would probably be towards the end of the year, beginning of next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you very much, Andrea.
Thank you.
Nice work. So that wraps up the folks that are part of the town manager's office. Are there any questions in general about all of them, or should we move to our last presenter?
I don't see any questions.
James McCrae is the district director for Veteran Services, serving both the town of Acton and the town of Boxborough. And he's here tonight to tell us a little bit about that.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm James McCrae, District Director of Veteran Services for Acton and Boxborough. I've worked for the town of Acton just over 10 years and covered Boxborough about 2 years now as well. So my job is essentially, I'm a one-stop shop for veterans benefits for surviving spouses and veterans. Assist veterans with all state and federal veterans benefits, assisting in navigating VA healthcare, service-connected disabilities, any physical or mental ailment a veteran believes is direct result of military service. We can submit a disability claim based on the severity and the findings. They'll assign a percentage, and with that accompanies a monetary an amount of money monthly, tax-free, to help compensate the veteran for their ailments. This includes presumptive conditions from exposure to Agent Orange. There's a list of ailments, including a list of respiratory cancers that are directly correlated with being exposed to Agent Orange, and we help submit claims for that as well. And also assist veterans troubleshooting various issues, lost missing discharge papers, and other smaller benefits as well. I also oversee and coordinate Veterans Day ceremonies and Memorial Day parades and ceremonies as well in the town, and as well as other smaller ceremonies that may happen periodically. I think this would include flag retirement ceremonies, where I work closely with the local Boy Scouts to retire used and unserviceable flags. My primary duty, and this will lead us right into my budget, which is on page 163. My primary duty as a veteran service officer, Massachusetts is the only state in the nation that by state law there must be a veteran service officer for every single town. And the primary reason for that is to assist with a state benefit known as Chapter 115 assistance. So on page 164 of the budget book, if you go all the way down to the bottom, veterans benefits. This is the assistance for surviving spouses and veterans who, based on financial criteria, how many members are in the household, how much they pay for rent, what their family size is, we're able to provide a monetary amount of money to help them get by each month. And this includes medical reimbursements as well. So Medicare B and D that comes out of Social Security, any supplemental coverage as well, private coverage. So for people who meet this benefit, we have about a dozen individuals, veterans and surviving spouses on the rolls currently that benefit from this as well. It's the hardest portion of my budget to factor in, because I just don't know who's going to walk into my office, in the coming weeks that may or may not be eligible, and for how much. So it's really a tough portion of my budget to really estimate, but I think so far we're doing an okay job. I like to have a little bit of a buffer of, I believe it was 10 or 20%, because if it's not funded properly, bottom line, that money has to come from somewhere statewide. So I'm glad that we continue to fund that well. Beyond that, I think the only other significant changes that you'll see are the increases in printing and copying, as well as postage and courier, and that reflects additional veterans mailings. I like to do mailings leading up to Veterans Day and Memorial Day each year, detailing local veteran-related happenings, detail different benefits. And this continues to prove to be my best way of outreach, so by far. So are there any questions?
Roland.
That's our town. What percentage of your time is split with Boxborough? I mean, in other words, how much time does Boxborough take versus Acton? Are you doing 85% Acton, 15% Boxborough, or is it 50-50?
Sure, great question. So my hourly, I've been 34 hours a week with the Town of Acton since I started 10 years ago. And we decided to add 4 more hours to my work week to cover Boxborough as well. I find that that's adequate.
So part of that question was, do we review from time to time the intermunicipal agreement with Boxborough to make sure it's meeting its contractual obligations, and that they're being fairly charged, we're being fairly charged, that type of thing?
Sure, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that they vote on it on an annual basis. So it's every year they have to agree to it.
We basically, the intermunicipal agreement needs to be renewed on an annual basis, and there's an exhibit to the agreement which shows the cost sharing, and it's generally been 10% of our veterans budget that they pay for, and perhaps a little bit more than that, and that's reviewed annually, and it's as James said, it's adequately covered his time.
And one last thing I forgot to mention regarding my budget under veterans benefits for Chapter 115 assistance is that the state reimburses the towns 75% of what we pay out. And I believe that goes back into revolving funds, John? I can't recall.
It's general fund, it comes back as general fund revenue. So it basically, they cover 75% of what the community contributes to veterans.
Thank you. Steve?
Yeah, James, I noticed in 2021 that in the veteran benefits line, it was $70,000 was spent against a $90,000 budget. Is it that it is difficult to qualify for the benefits? It sounds like there's enough potential people that need it, but how hard is it to qualify for the benefits?
So for a surviving spouse or single veteran, monthly income, the monthly income threshold should not exceed $2,300 a month. If it's slightly over that and they have significant medical costs, we could do what's called a medical spend down and give them a partial reimbursement. But essentially, that's where the income threshold lies for this benefit. In addition to that, assets, not including your primary home, vehicle, personal belongings, should not exceed $8,600 for a veteran or surviving spouse. Ultimately, what they may have in savings or and IRAs would not be counted as assets, but rather monthly income as long as they're drawing from it.
Another thing I would add is that James does a really great job of trying to identify federal benefits that are available outside of what we provide, and so anywhere that he directs people to resources at the VA or through other federal programs, so that it limits what we have to spend locally, but it still gives our residents the help they need.
Anything you can do for veterans is appreciated. It just sounds like they practically have to be below the poverty line to qualify.
It is unfortunate for this benefit, yes.
And that seems like a shame, but thank you for what you do, James.
Other questions? Thank you very much, James.
So, well, thank you. So what you heard from is the subject matter experts throughout the organization that deliver services to the community that I'm very proud of, and I believe we all are very proud of. And you got to hear directly from them how they do it and the funding that they need to accomplish it next year. So I want to thank the team for their excellent presentations. It's always a challenge doing this through Zoom instead of in person, but I think they all stood up to the challenge and did a really nice job. And if there are any follow-up questions, if you think of anything on your way home, or I guess later, feel free to reach out to me. And then I'm happy to continue the conversation as we work to bring the recommended budget through the course on its way to town meeting.
Well, thank you, John, for putting it together, the budget book and everything. It was really clear. Nice job balancing the needs and stuff to keep the budget increases reasonable, and also include things to satisfy community goals and some forward thinking programs and things like that. So great job. Any final comments before we adjourn? Christine, do you want to adjourn your meeting?
Sure. And I'll start with saying thank you, John, and your entire team for all the information and excellent presentation. I'm sure we'll have follow-up thoughts, but we really appreciate all of your time and energy. I know it was a lot. Okay, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Excellent. We'll do a roll call vote. Steve Noon.
Aye.
Isha.
Aye.
Adam.
Aye.
Mike.
He said aye.
Okay. Christy.
Aye.
Roland.
Roland?
No, he says aye.
He says aye.
Aye.
Jason.
Aye.
And I say aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I would take a motion to adjourn.
Well, so moved.
Okay, Jim moves and,
I'll second.
okay, I heard Dean first, so Dean seconds. Jim, would you call the roll, please?
Oh, yes. Oh, I haven't done this for hours and hours. Let's see. Dean.
Aye.
David.
Aye.
Fran.
Aye.
Imogen.
Aye.
And Jim also says aye. So we are unanimous at the idea of